Andrew Wright, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you being here today. I think many conversations we've had throughout the region, throughout the city of Tampa, your name comes up. Oh, Andrew Wright's doing this or that. And I've sort of followed you for a couple years. I think the first time I noticed you was looking into listings with Franklin Street. This was a few years ago. That is an awesome story. We were talking before we hopped on here. You started that in 2006, which that year was probably great. And then
2007 was great too.
2007 was great. When was the crash officially? Like September 2008, something like that?
I think the first inklings of it were in April. That was the first real adjustment in the interest rates in the CMBS market, the spreads. And then August is really when the bottom dropped out of it and everything kind of ground to a halt.
So you mentioned April. Did you sort of see the writing on the wall?
I was too young, and I mean, you're 26 years old, 27 years old at that time. What do you know? You don't know anything. I mean, to that point, I started my career in 2002, and I saw the run up, condo conversions and low interest rates, which they're where they are today, and I thought it was all me. It's like, oh, look how great I am at this, and then all of a sudden you wake up and completely different world and environment, and I wouldn't say I saw it coming, definitely not, and then you have to adapt, work through it.
And so that was almost 20 years ago, which is probably crazy to think about. But now, what are you guys involved in, just so people understand who you are? I mean, obviously, Franklin Street is something you've sort of stepped away from at this point.
I'm back.
You're back.
I'm fully back. Yeah, I stepped away, I guess it was close to 3 years ago now. And I was out for about a 14, 15-month period. And when I say out, I was never fully out. I didn't sell a share. I was the chairman of the board. I was very involved in the finances and the governance and the strategy, just running the day-to-day of an operating business, particularly a people-centric operating business, because we don't have a patent on a product.
Right.
We're dealing with people. It's a confidence game in a big way. That was kind of where I stepped out of the visibility and the day-to-day operation of it. But I've been back, firmly now for several years, and it's great. I love it.
Back why though? Aren't there bigger fish you want to fry? I mean, why step back into this role?
Well, I didn't choose to. My successor had a personal issue that came up and made him unable to serve in that role, and that forced me to come back in. And the interesting part isn't really why I stepped away or why I came back. It's what I found when I came back. Going back to when you're 26 and I don't have a whole lot of experience that I can pull of what it was like some other time, right? So when you're building a business and you're stepping away from a company that you founded and ran for 16 years, what's the right way to do it? I don't know. I didn't know. I still am not 100% sure. I did it in a way that I thought was right, which was to allow everyone the space to make it their own and do their own thing, and really became not visible. Really just kind of walked out and wasn't really engaged. And not because I didn't love it or didn't care about it. It's part of who I am. It's part of my being, but because I wanted other people to succeed and ascend. And then, when you come back, you realize some of the little things that make us special, that made us successful. It's not the big things. It's the little things had kind of eroded culture, primarily, why people are there. And really just dove, right back into that, from a raging fire of culture, which has carried us for 16 years to a little bit of a receding.
Sure. Yeah.
And then, now we're back.
Wow. That's interesting. So stepping away and coming back gave you that perspective to be like, wait a second, let me unravel this, and let me figure out maybe how we can tweak this thing. So is this like have you refound passion and amplifying Franklin Street?
Well, I never lost passion. I'm a very energetic, passionate person in every respect. It's about, life's about challenge and purpose and trying to do the right things. And Franklin Street, I've been running it for 16 years now, 19 years. And there's a lot of other things I'm involved with that I want to spend my time on. And also I have a great team of people who have been with me for a long time who really need to grow and ascend in their own careers.
Yeah.
So, if I stay there, I'm a blocker. Someone told me a long time ago, make yourself irreplaceable. And that's like the way in business. Worst advice you could ever give somebody, because when you're irreplaceable, you can't progress, can't move on. It's actually the opposite. You want to make yourself replaceable, because then you can continue to move down the chain. You're not stuck in doing one thing for the rest of time. And that's where I'm, kind of aspire to be. I want the team to go on without me. My ultimate goal is for Franklin Street to be successful if I'm not involved, not be reliant on me.
That's a tricky one. I'm sort of dealing with that now. I'm 32 years old. I started my brokerage. How old was I? I think I was 25 or 26. We just do residential. My mom is my agent. She was super successful, and I sort of saw a pinch in the market. She was a agent at Michael Saunders and Company, and I was a college grad, and I sort of saw things from a different perspective than she did. And so I immediately got my broker's license 2 years in, and I was like, "You're going to be my agent. We're going to use all the extra commission on marketing dollars and grow this brokerage and all that sort of stuff." And that's what I did, and supported her in what I could, and then tried to grow the brokerage business. And you're right; it's so much about people. You're not selling a product; it's all about people management, relationships, and of course, your client and customer management too. And I grew it up to 28 agents, and that next phase for me would have sort of been to hire not a number two, but like a sales manager of some sort. Like at that point, this was like 3 years ago, like kind of right before I started the podcast. But I was at a point where I wanted to hire someone. And I, at the time, was doing everything. I was writing the checks, doing the administration, handling the legal issues. I was the broker. I was doing like trainings. I was doing the Monday meetings. And it was like, I've just worked myself. I was 29, and I was like, I've worked myself into a wedge where now I'm just sort of have like this job where my vision was always to be a business owner. And it was hard for me to scale. And I think looking back a few years, maybe I was in my own way. Maybe I wanted to hold on to the reins too tightly, and no one else knew how I could do it. And you're kind of letting me understand maybe I was wrong. Maybe I should have allowed people to come into the organization and understand that they would have made mistakes, but allow them to navigate through those mistakes and learn, rather than me just say, just get out of my way. Like, let me try to figure this thing out.
What gets you here won't get you there. So when you're starting and you're, a one person show, you're the head cook and chief dishwasher, to use the restaurant analogy. And that's really, how I was too. I mean, I'm 26 years old when I started Franklin Street. I'm not from Tampa. No one knows who I am. No one expects me to be successful at it. Highly competitive space. It's not as if there's no one else doing commercial real estate in our area. And, when you're trying to start, that's what it takes. I'm doing deals. I'm trying to hire people. I'm trying to train people, trying to manage growth. I mean, I didn't have a big economic backer. So, if I don't do deals, I don't eat, I can't afford infrastructure. You're always balancing growth and profitability because, you need to reinvest in infrastructure, and that costs people. So I hire someone. I don't make revenue that next day. I hire someone to give my time back to have the possibility of driving revenue up. And it's a constant dance, back and forth between trying to build the business and perform and work in the business. And I think there are thresholds, as you get up to scale. You're one person, you only have so many hours in the day. And it's like being the 10-foot tall basketball player that's now the coach. So no matter how you good are as an individual, eventually you hit a wall and life gets in the way. All of a sudden you have kids and you get married. When you're 26 years old, you don't have a whole lot of responsibility and you don't have a whole lot of need. I don't need to go out to nice dinners. I can eat, whatever and stay home on the couch and be happy. Life gets a little more complicated as you grow, and that transition becomes very difficult. I mean, my leadership style, the things that I've worked on, I've evolved a lot, tremendously, and still trying to figure that out. And so I don't think anyone that starts a business can do anything but what you did. So I don't know that it was wrong. It just kind of gets to that inflection point where you have to shift gears, or you have to, what gets you here won't get you there.
Right. 100%. And before, that's super young to sort of break off on your own. Where were you at before you started your own shop?
I was at Marcus and Millichap.
For a couple years?
For 5 years.
5 years.
Yeah. So I graduated college in 2002, Miami. So I grew up in Columbus, Ohio. Went to school at Miami of Ohio. One of my best friends from college, a guy named Copeland Moore, they own Las Lagunas Central Bakery. So 4-generation Tampa family, I guess now 5 generations with his kids. And we were in the same dorm and lived together for 3 years post-college. My family, I grew up in Columbus, but my senior year of high school, they moved to California. My junior year of college, they moved to Atlanta. So my immediate family wasn't where I'd grown up, and started looking. And, one of my friends was from here, had a network. Another one of my friends got a job here. It was enough for me to look. Interviewed in 3 places. It was actually the lowest paying job I was offered by far.
Wow.
But after my job interview, went to West Chase Golf with a couple of buddies, hit a hole in one, and I'm a terrible golfer. and it was fate. You can't make that up, right?
That's
So
crazy. Wow.
decided to come and really never planned on staying in Florida or Tampa for that matter. Just was coming here for a little while to get some separation and, then started having some success. I've always been a hardworking guy, very entrepreneurial. I mean, that's kind of why I started the company. It wasn't because of any other reason. I just, since I was 13, I had 3 jobs. Always been a worker. So
Was your dad an entrepreneur? I mean, where did
he
that come
wasn't.
from?
He worked for UPS for 30 years.
Wow.
And
So the opposite,
the
steady
opposite.
Eddie, one job, moved up the ranks.
That was how people were raised then.
Sure.
Get for a good company, have a pension, have a long term, and it was hugely successful for our family, particularly where we were coming from to where we ended up with him, and all that work gave me the opportunity to take more risks. He didn't. When you are married at 18 and have a kid at 22 and another kid at 25 and another kid at 30, going back to what we were saying before, you don't have the luxury of taking risk. It was kind of what he was locked into.
Mm-hmm.
But all those efforts allowed me to take a chance. I think one of the best pieces of advice I could ever give to young entrepreneurs is do it. Everyone wants to have everything planned out and be ready for whatever that means, but it's not like you're successful or on the street. And I think people kind of think in this like binary mindset. There's a degree of success, and you know what? It's not going to work out as you think it's going to. And perseverance and adaptability, these are traits that I think are very, very important in business and success. And so, really kind of starting Franklin Street was I was too young to know better and ambitious and wanted to make a lot of money, and because I got to Tampa at the right place, right time. So starting my career in 2002, learning the business as an assistant for a couple years, and then having a pretty successful brokerage career early on, making more money than I ever dreamed of by the time I was 26. You just, I'm great. It's all me.
Yeah.
And then, life teaches you real quick that it's not all you, and it was a function of the market and the timing. And then when the world collapsed on top of me, it's all my fault. It's all me. It's all me again. And you learn that's not true either. But I think it's going through those experiences. I think those are all the things that, you end up where you end up.
Yeah. Yeah. It adds to your tool belt along the way for sure. I mean, even those lessons learned. So what was it like? You started your own shop, you have a taste of success. You probably had a little money in your pocket from your, 5-year stint, right?
Mm-hmm.
As a broker, you start your own shop, recession hits. I mean, did you look for other jobs? Like, how'd you navigate through that one?
Yeah. So you're right. I had made, some money. I wasn't, out buying cars and doing crazy stuff. I got married, I bought a house, had my first child, started a company. And then, my first child was born December of 2007. And, not 9 months later, the world's collapsing on top of me. And on top of that, I'd taken my money and I bought a couple apartment buildings on South Westshore, south of Gandy, that I was going to convert to condos because that was the condo craze era. And there was 2. There was a 40 unit and a 68 unit property. The 40 unit I had completed and converted and sold couple units, and the 68 units was halfway through a rehab, so vacated and under construction. And then the world, and full recourse, forget about the money I had in it, full recourse construction loan. Started a business that I don't know if it's going to work. No one's ever heard of me going back to that. And the walls were coming in on me in 2008 pretty quickly. And so I contemplated a lot of things. Do I just quit and give up? Do I go back, get a job for a bank, or just change direction? I really credit my wife mostly. At that time, we started with nothing, and I was working obsessively. I'm always a hard worker, but at that point in time, you're working obsessively, really out of fear, and
right.
You're trying to keep it afloat, and you come home and you're putting all the stress and you're carrying it all. And she sat me down and said, we've had a couple interventions in my work life. And she sat me down and she just basically said, look, we started with nothing. You have nothing. Most of our friends are getting out of graduate school or just starting their career. Like, what's the big deal? Like, we'll just go forward.
Damn,
and
she hit you like that. Wow.
It was the perfect advice though, because the next day it's like, what do I have to lose? Why am I so upset? I don't really care. And that gave me, having that support gave me the focus to be able to really know it would be okay. You put your head down and you just start grinding through every day, all day. And fast forward, 2013, you look up and all of a sudden things were working. And in hindsight, it was actually the best time to start a company because it leveled the playing field. When it's go, 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 and everyone's successful, it's really hard to make a change or to compete with people who are on top of the world. But being new and nimble and smart and innovative, where the world had kind of cleared out, it was really the perfect time for me to get going.
Damn. So at that time, were you focused more so on hiring new associates? And I'm talking like after the dust settled, right? Like maybe what, 2010, 11, and things started to pick somewhat up. I remember it being very slow. I graduated high school in 2010. So that sort of run up in the early 2000s was like elementary, middle, and high school. I wasn't paying that much attention to the market. When did things sort of turn? And were you focused on hiring agents, or was it more about doing your own deals independently? Or probably both, right?
Well, both. I mean, when you're starting up a company and you have a fixed amount of money, do you spend it on salespeople or HR people or
Mm,
accounting people for that matter, right? It's like sales, 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 sales.
yes.
Eventually, you go to a point where you have to build infrastructure, and that's kind of that growth and profitability are always pooling each other. In the beginning, you're doing it yourself. You're making sales, and then you're trying to bring on people. You're training them. A lot of the business I would develop, I would hand over to people, and so you're doing both. But you said it was really slow at that time. I mean, it's all relative. I mean, it's really slow right now. It's very analogous to the beginning where not a whole lot of transaction velocity, but that doesn't mean not a whole lot's going on.
True.
And so at that time, they was extremely busy just trying to work through resolving these, broken cap tables. Everything was upside down. Everything was over levered. Operations were plummeting while debt was high. Banks were failing left and right. And so it was an extremely active time. I mean, so I started the company in 2006. We started with our mortgage business. That was the first line of business because as a broker, it was easy for me to, who's financing the deal I'm selling you, right? And CMBS, if you had a heart rate and scribbled income statement, you were good to go for a 10-year loan. And we did a lot of that origination. In 2005, backing up a little bit, that was my first real understanding of hurricanes in Florida, Charlie being the first
Yes.
one, but there was 3 that crisscrossed the state. And I watched insurance go up 500% overnight. And in a transaction, what that results in is people walking away from deals and lenders blowing up commitments. And so it was really, kind of an epiphany for me about the importance of it. And then on the other side of it, the sellers or the owners of the property, they paid the 500% increase because they had no choice.
Right.
So it kind of highlighted for me the importance of insurance, particularly in Florida. And so fast forward, so we started with the mortgage business. We started an insurance business in the middle of 2007 because most people have insurance because their lender requires it. But what did I know at that time? And we really stood that up, and it was perfect timing because as the mortgage business collapsed in the middle of 2007, the insurance business was just standing up, and so it was able for us to transition in revenue and bring us some stability. We're really good at that business on this side. Everything else in my service business is there's a sale to get the job, and then there's the performance of it. List the property with me and I'll get you the highest price. Hire me to lease up your building and I'll get you all the tenants. Hire me to manage it. I'll do a good job, right? I have to win the business and then I perform. Right. The insurance business is the opposite. At the point of sale, I know exactly what I'm buying. I know what the coverage is. I know what it costs. There's no leap of faith with it. It's a commodity. And, you can be the worst salesperson in the world, literally. But if I give you a policy that's acceptable to your lender and half the cost, you're going to tell all your friends about me. You're going to be like, oh, he's the greatest ever. Even if
Right. Yeah.
not so much in the other lines of business. And so that was a very important component of kind of carrying us through because it's non-correlated to, it's happening for us right now at Franklin Street.
It sort of balanced out those different avenues of your business. Was it all under Franklin Street Mortgage, Franklin Street Insurance?
Yes. It was the original business plan was to do that. It was kind of two-faceted. One was vertical integration. If you own investment real estate, you have more than just buying and selling considerations or lease up considerations. Someone's got to sell it, someone's got to finance it, someone's got to run it, you got to lease it, you got to build it, you got to deal with all sorts of issues. And you want to be an advisor. I mean, I'm very much a relationship person. That's, very important to me in all aspects of life, including business. Hard to be build a relationship, be an advisor if you're only like, are you selling? Are you selling? Are you selling? Right? I mean, that's not advisory. And so that was one of the original premises, was just to be able to provide a suite of services that really allowed you to kind of deal with whatever problems we're facing. And then the other part was more internal to the business. You wanted offensive and defensive non-correlated revenue streams. So our insurance business is reoccurring, non-correlated to the real estate, really. Property management's a reoccurring business. Leasing, actually, generally speaking, is a reoccurring business. And then the investment sales, the transaction business, and the capital placements, those are very market centric. We had a record year in 2021 and, one of the worst years ever in 2023.
So these reoccurring businesses kind of hedged against the market fluctuations of the brokerage business.
That's exactly right. That was the original intent. and it got tested, right? Like 2 years in.
Yeah,
Because
very quickly.
yeah, and I didn't know if it was going to work. Going back to like I was having a panic attack over the whole thing, being upside down because of that.
So
But it worked.
so the uncertainty and the fear, right? You kind of mentioned you're coming home to your wife like very stressed out during this time. But did the stress mostly come from your business or was it from the investments you were talking about? Sounds like those investments were sort of in trouble at that time.
I mean, all of it. When you don't have a
All of it.
when you don't have a safety net,
Yeah.
you're just worrying about. I mean, yeah, top of mind was going back to you're either successful or on the street. You have this kind of fear of failure in every respect. I mean, how am I going to make the mortgage payments? How am I going to, navigate our life? And that was part of it. But then I think there's also the ego element of it, or the social expectation. I mean, who wants to fall on their face? I mean, it's part of life, but I think, you don't want to let your parents down. You don't want the community down, the people that are working for you that have kind of jumped onto your boat and believed in it. I mean, I would say it's pressure from every angle.
Was there a moment maybe after the recession, 10, 11, 12, 13, somewhere in there where you kind of came home and you were like, babe, we hit something big? Like, was there a deal you made early on that amplified you, or was it more consistent throughout the ramp up post recession?
No, there was never like an epiphany moment or an
Sure.
awakening moment. And I think really the opposite. You're only focused on what's wrong and what needs to get better, not what's going right. I think really going back to did you hire salespeople or hire support? You kind of get to this point where you're just at a breaking point from a time perspective. There's not enough hours in the day to do all the things that need to be done.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of pressure. I mean, people think bigger is how you make a lot of money. Really optimizing a good sized business. You can make the same amount of money on a business 5 times the size,
Right.
just have a lot more headaches and stress.
Yeah.
And so I didn't have that clarity, when I was 29 or whatever, 30. But as you're going, you eventually need to get to that crossroads of what do you want to be and who do you want to be? And I think that was, 2014, 2015, those were the years really where I was getting to that crossroads of,
Yeah.
I had some success. I started to make some investments. We started to do a lot of a bankruptcy work, and I could, get into that. That was really the beginning of Ally Capital and the investment part of it. But you try to, what do you want? What do you want in life? Having a small team with 20 people where you can do a lot of deals and make a lot of fees and show up in flip flops and kind of run your own schedule is a way different life than having hundreds of people that are relying on you and trying to punch up and climb uphill, kind of across the board. And so I think that was really the epiphany moment of like, what do you want to do?
Yeah, that's a little bit where I've been and kind of maybe where I'm at now is my brokerage I've sort of whittled down to be more efficient and getting rid of some people that were like referral agents or really not showing up a whole lot. And I started to really do the math. And the residential brokerage business is a lot different from obviously commercial real estate. In residential, it's a lot, I feel like, quicker transactions. It's very, I mean, I've never worked in commercial, but I would assume it's a lot more numbers based and longer term. I mean, some of these deals take years to close, where in residential you can buy a house in 30 days or less. So we just had a deal close that was cash 2 weeks. So I started to like bake down the numbers. I'm like, if I wanted to net 250 grand a year net, right? After all my business expenses, I started to do the math on the commission. I'm like, well, that's X number of agents and that's X number of trainings and X number of, maybe there's some liability out there with that many agents. And then I started to bake that all down. At the same time, for the last decade, I've like flipped houses. I bought 2 little Section 8 units back in, what was it? It was like 8 years ago in Sarasota, these little properties downtown. And I eventually bought a few more and ended up owning 11 of them, fixed them all up, packaged it up as a portfolio and sold it. And I looked at what I made on that. And I started to compare that to my brokerage business. And so for the last like 2 years, I've been much more focused on investments, and I've got my first little development project I'm doing. And for me, and I think you said it perfectly, like I really needed to hear that right now, where it's like, it's about what you want. Like you're at that crossroads, like, well, what do you want to do? Both are great avenues and maybe great businesses. But for me, there's so much more creativity and passion in my heart for investments and development in real estate. And so that's where I've been at, is like, I've kind of walked down that path with these investments, and I own a few buildings here in Tampa, and it's it's been challenging because I kind of don't know what the hell I'm doing.
It's okay.
A
That's okay.
couple, yeah, I've gotten caught on a couple of little things, and I've talked to some people that are at a much higher level than me, and they're like, "Dude, why'd you do it that way?" I'm like, "Well,
Didn't know better.
I didn't know better, but now I do, right?"
Uh,
So I needed to hear that, man. Yeah, that's an amazing story. And so you you kind of grew this thing up, and as you know, the early 2010s, 11s, 12s started cranking. I noticed Franklin Street had a ton of listings. It looks like you guys were doing exceptionally well. Where were you at sort of before Alley Capital at its peak, before you started that maybe transition into your investment? You mentioned bankruptcy business as
yeah.
well.
So, middle of 2008 or end of 2008, the world collapses, and one of my largest clients, a guy by the name of Ron Glass, he really believed in me early. So, he was more progressed in his career and believed in a 27-year-old or 25-year-old broke. I think I spent my 24th birthday with him actually, driving around looking at Section 8 buildings all over the state. And, you start asking people questions about like, what about this and what about this and what about this? I think there's just a preconception that because you're older and you've been in the business longer, you know more than me. And they certainly have more wisdom, but the technical knowledge of things is not always the case. And that kind of led me to helping him through, a pretty robust bankruptcy, several $100 million worth of debt and a lot of different properties, which was what was going on in the market at that point in time. And I became very effective at it. I didn't file any bankruptcies myself, but I had a front row seat for a lot of them.
Wow.
I mean, I've resolved, over $1.5 billion of distressed debt, distressed properties, all different lender profiles.
What does that exactly look like? I don't know if I understand.
Messy. So, I mean, going back down, I mean, it never looks quite the same because the a balance sheet lender who's lending their own money is different than a conduit lender who's lending someone else's money, and is different than an agency lender, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. So the decision-making structures through all the lenders is always a little bit different.
Yeah.
But you gotta work it out with them. So you typically send them a letter and you say, hey, this isn't working and we need to work something out. And they normally start by sending you a letter saying, no, read the loan documents. And you're kind of put in a position where you have to act. And, at that point in time, we go to the lenders and say, okay, well, now we're not going to pay you. And they put you in default and you start going through a whole workout department. Again, you have special servicing groups and workout departments, depending upon, which base you're in.
And you thought you were stressed with your business, and then you see these numbers and you're like, holy shit.
Yeah, well, I remember it's funny, my 28th birthday, I gave a presentation to 14 lenders on a go-to meeting, before Zoom, before Teams, kind of, this is, 2008. Wait, no, it was my 28th birthday. It was 2008. It was September of 2008. And, the basic premise was like, if one of you guys, because there were multiple lenders, if one of you guys files foreclosure, all of you are going into bankruptcy because you can't fight individual battles. You got to wrap it all together. And I remember sitting there going like, what am I doing here? I don't know anything about this stuff. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not the owner, but I could do math.
How'd you get that opportunity?
Just trust. I mean, going back to my client, Ron, we spent a lot of time together, and when the walls were coming in, you really see who your friends are. And,
Wow.
And he had a lot of trust in me, and I had a lot of knowledge. And next thing you know, I'm leading these negotiations and got to a pretty successful resolution.
Wow.
I mean, I even think back, some of the original players, like there was when Colonial Bank, was around and failed. And, I mean, everyone was going, Washington Mutual. And
I mean, I'm assuming this is a sort of mentor for you, right?
Definitely.
Absolutely, right? I'm assuming he's got enough money to have a badass team of lawyers and people to look through this. And yet here you are in your late 20s directly helping him navigate it.
Yeah. It's when you're in distress, I mean, you don't have cash. So you're trying to figure it out, right? You're trying to that time, it wasn't just that, the bottom fell out of the debt market. If you recall, like the housing market collapsed, people were losing their jobs, major, the great financial crisis.
Yeah.
People couldn't afford their rent. And, if you don't pay rent, then I can't make a mortgage payment. I can't make payroll. Don't have money, for lawyers. I mean, there's plenty of money for lawyers. Don't get me wrong, because you need them. But lawyers are still not business people. They don't know the ins and outs of it. And I filled a unique void where I wasn't a lawyer and I wasn't the banker, but I could do all the analysis and I could, sort through that. So I spent a lot of time with Scott Stichter, a local guy. Still got his number memorized. How many phone numbers you got memorized? I got a bankruptcy number off the top of my head. And that was an interesting several years, but it was fantastic. I mean, particularly in the beginning of your career, to be able to have that experience,
Yeah.
not just the theory of the math, but the emotion of going through bankruptcy, the process of going through all of that, the players that are involved, how it ultimately got resolved at the end. And that was what was interesting on my investment side. That was really the beginning of Ally Capital Group, was because when you know how to defend it, you know how to attack it. And so we ended up buying, starting in 2009, a bunch of properties out of bankruptcy, and buying notes, and really.
With your mentor?
No, it was, he was fighting his own battle, and he was still involved in a lot of it. So I wouldn't say, but he wasn't putting up the money because he didn't have any. So I found a couple of investors from other friends of mine, and you start by, they're putting up all the money and you're getting sweat equity into them, and
Wow.
getting paid on performance, and we're pretty good at it. I mean, my investment track record's I'm very, very proud of it.
How do you pitch that early on though, right? I mean, here you are, first of all, you're very young. I mean, when you started to first buy those distressed properties, you were what, 30, 29?
Yeah, 29.
And so the world's collapsing. It's probably like the worst time to be involved in real estate. Although if you have cash, there's probably deals.
It's the best time to be involved in real estate.
Best time to be a buyer. But how do you pitch that at such a young age? I mean, and gather those larger investments? I mean, that's a tough pitch, right? This episode is brought to you by the official remodeler of the TBD podcast, Kohler House Remodeling Company. Built on the belief that every homeowner deserves a premium experience, Kohler House is redefining high-end home remodeling with their commitment to integrity, craftsmanship, and quality communication. Their work speaks for itself, from condos in the towers of Channelside to 100-year-old homes in South Tampa, creating spaces that are both stunning and functional. What sets Kohler House Remodeling Company apart is their dedication to not only transforming homes into beautiful spaces, but to elevating the standard of residential general contracting. From concept to completion, every detail is handled with care, ensuring a process that's as smooth as the results are impressive. To learn more, check out our partner's website at kohlerhouse.net, KOHLERHAUS.net. This episode is sponsored by Chansey Architecture and Interior Design. Rooted in the heart of Ybor City for over 35 years, Walt Chansey and his team are trailblazers in their field. Beyond their work across the United States and the Bahamas, Chansey has shaped some of the most iconic residential and commercial spaces that serve as gateways to Cigar City, including Casa Marti and Casa Gomez. What sets Chansey Design apart is their ability to preserve the soul and character of historic buildings while seamlessly integrating modern design and functionality. They blend tradition with innovation, creating spaces that honor the past while meeting today's needs. Check out their work at www.chanseydesign.com.
Well, I think it's, part of it is having access to deal flow. Part of it's having the knowledge to resolve it. So because I'd been in so many bankruptcy situations already, again, not personally, but on behalf of somebody, that it gave you the map.
Yeah.
And you kind of start, but my first deal wasn't a huge $100 million transaction. I mean, we probably did a $4 or $5 million deal.
Sure.
And then when you round trip that, actually, I think it was 3.6 million now that I actually think about it. When you round trip that and you make them a bunch of money pretty quickly, people want to do more.
Was it a local deal, that first one?
My very first deal was, so I bought those 2 buildings I was converting to condos. I was upside down on it. My very first workout was my own. And so I found those investors. We bought back my notes, and, we ended up, fixing that very quickly and making a bunch of money. And that led to do a bunch more. And those investors went on to be extreme. They were very successful professionally, but they were investing on their personal account. They ended up being hugely successful. And so they really funded almost all of my investments for the next 5 or 6 years.
And they're like, we're sticking with this Andrew kid. He's just making us a whole bunch of money. He knows the game. He's on the inside. I mean, that's
how it happened.
That's it.
Yeah. You perform and all of a sudden it gets easier.
And so you're doing these at the same time, right? Like, you've got Franklin Street, you're building this, you're sort of mentoring the new people coming in. You mentioned culture in the beginning. Sounds like that's a big thing for you.
It's my everything.
It's your everything. Explain what that means for you, that culture.
Well, going back, I think when you're starting a company, you don't really think about that. I mean, leaving where I was before, I knew what I didn't like. Marcus was a great place. I don't have a lot of bad thoughts of it. I mean, iron sharpens iron. If you're in the arena and you're competing against people around you, it makes you a lot better. I mean, if you and I are running, we're exercising, and I'm going to run by myself, I'll run pretty hard, but all of a sudden you put you next to me, I'm going to run a little bit harder. Right. And I think that was the benefit of it. It was very competitive and allowed you to shine early. But once you know what you're doing, then it becomes destructive because, the next young person's calling all your clients and telling them that you're washed up and I'm the new person, and people are going through your desk, and there's just a lot of toxic, competition is good and bad. And so there's toxic competition where it's zero sum between us. And that's where I really started to not like where I was, right? So I know before I was telling you I'm half Colombian. So I grew up in a very familial environment. My grandparents lived 2 blocks down. Both my parents worked. So I spent a lot of time over there. And there's always cousins and friends and people coming in. And that's just kind of who I am as a person. Like, I love people. I want to be around people. That's a big part of kind of my life. And I realized I was in an environment where it didn't align with my values. And so when I was, wanting to build Franklin Street, the reason why it's named Franklin Street, not the Wright real estate company, is because I didn't want it to be about me. I wanted to build something that was about, kind of a greater thing. And it's very hard to name a company, by the way, if you don't want to name it after yourself, because everything's taken. You kind of go through.
So true.
It's impossible.
Yeah, I went the other way around with that. Greco Real Estate. Well, so Franklin Street, what is the main street of Tampa, basically?
Yeah. So
right?
we hired a company called Fourth Door Creative, a local company. I think they still do like all the little magazines that were in the 813 or 727 or South Tampa magazine. And I wanted a media kit, help me with the name, help me with the brand and the logo. And we had settled on a name, First Corner Financial, always around the corner, 3 square and a rounded one. And I hated it. It's just,
you didn't like it?
No, you get fatigued from trying to come up with stuff.
True.
And I, not so much now, but I used to keep a pad by my bed, because I would wake up and I just write stuff down. And then the naming of the business, we had whiteboarded just words, and whatever you could come up with, just what word do you like, put it up there. And someone had put up all the downtown Tampa streets. And so it's like First Corner Financial Partners, and I'm looking at the sheet and it's like Franklin Street Financial Partners. Like, it's kind of got a ring to it. Sounds pretty good. And fatigue. I'm like, let's just go with it. So we launched it. And then I was on the phone with one of a client, an old client of mine, but it was the first time I talked to him in the new brand. And I was like, hey, Mark, it's Andrew Wright here at Franklin Street. He's like, oh, you moved. I said, yeah. He's like, I heard of you guys. I'm like, I don't think you have.
Pretty sure you haven't. Yeah, but that's all right.
But it validated that it was a good name, and it's been that really ever since. Our legal name is still Franklin Street Financial Partners, but we dropped the financial partner moniker pretty soon thereafter because everyone thought we were like an investment bank.
Yeah.
And kind of hard to just brand a street, Franklin Street. But I think we pulled it off at this point. But
totally. So you get this brand, you get cranking, and you're doing kind of both these things at the same time, right? You're growing Franklin Street, but then you're also you're investing. Sounds like you never really stopped doing that.
I've always been involved in multiple things. It's not really an either or.
It's never been an either.
No.
And even today.
Even today,
it's probably the most varied of investments and different things you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I've gotten better at it. I mean, going back to the culture element of it, I think that's critical, right? So when you're building that business and you're naming it from day one, but you're still a 26, 27-year-old kid, you don't really know what you're building.
Yeah.
But you have a value set. You have things that make you who you are, from your family or however you've progressed. And going back, I've always been real social, and I wanted to be about the group, about people, about building something, about leaving a legacy and doing it together. And, kind of fast forward, you're in it, and maybe you didn't really live up to that vision. Not because in the early, we are today for sure, but early, just because you're this aspirational in 2006, and then you're scared for your life in 2008. Culture isn't necessarily at the top of the list of things,
right?
But you kind of very quickly, like when you're young and you're aspiring, it's about work and business and making money. But once you get to a certain point, like I got to a crossroads, if I jump ahead and I'll come back.
Sure.
2014, you were asking me, did I have these epiphanies? And it's like, what do I want to be and where am I? And I was in a really, challenging place because you're getting pressure from all sorts of angles. My dad got sick, so that started to kind of weigh in my mind about like, what do I really want in my life? And after months of thought and reflection, I settled on 2 kind of key things. One is I love people. I'm always with people. I have 5 children. I'm very, people based. I think life is really about authentic relationship, and, people get caught up in all sorts of kind of false things, but authentic relationship with people who are being real and their hardships and their vulnerabilities. That's really what life's about. When you're happy and you win something, you want to celebrate. When you lose something, it's negative, you can commiserate. You need people to go through. And I think the other part is you want to be challenged. Life's not about easy. It's not about the layup that you hit or whatever you were given. It's about, walking uphill both ways in the snow and accomplishing. It's about being part of something. I mean, that's what people want, right? And that's kind of where I am today. I mean, I keep pressing and trying to accomplish the next thing. It's not about what I've already done. It's about what's left to do. And when you start with very humble beginnings, I don't need a whole lot to be happy and successful. And a lot of times, the more successful you get, the more you get caught up in things that don't really matter. And so when I had this epiphany of like, I love people and it's really what's important to me. And I love being challenged. I mean, it's what I had right in front of me. I have all these people that followed a 26-year-old kid, not from here, doesn't have any money, doesn't know anything. And yet they became, part of what we're doing. And, I equate building a business to standing on the edge of a cliff where there's clouds, you don't know what's there, and you're terrified to jump off because what if, and what if I can't make it, and what all these things
Right.
happen. But then you look left and you look right and you see these people who are there with you and you meet that fate together. Like that's what it's about. And then once I had that realization, I mean, we really doubled down and trying to define culture, because the other part of it is, I'm not into, you read business books about culture and all these buzzwords and various things.
Yeah.
I wasn't really into that up until this point. But when it grows beyond, when it's 20 people in an office in Tampa and you're young, culture is like, let's go get a beer after work,
Sure.
or, let's kind of do one of these things. That's not what it is when you have multiple offices and, lots of different people, and I'm at a different point in my life. And people were coming to me at this time frame too, saying, oh, it's changed. The culture's different. Everything's different. And for a while I was like, is it, like it really, kind of troubled me. But then I, took a pause back and I said, actually it's not. It just hasn't been defined. And so we started to write things down, hard work, accountability, collaboration, integrity, innovation. These are foundational values that are true all the time. They don't guarantee success.
Sure.
Because, there's lots of hard workers that aren't successful, but there are things that I think are foundational kind of to who we are. And then we started defining a little bit about what culture means. We like to have fun. We care about our communities. We have high expectations of ourselves and each other. We're passionate about our client success. We started to really, write that stuff down. So whether I'm in Atlanta or not, they know what we're about. Whether I'm in South Florida or not, they know what we're about. We just expanded to Texas, and we're very focused on expanding there. Spent some time in Austin, our Austin office. We have like almost 25 people there now, and I was so excited to be there because it reminded me of like the startup atmosphere. And we have these young people in this, shitty office, frankly, but it's great. And they're working their way up, and they're excited to be together, and it's them against the world. And like all the things that I believed in when we started the company and culture are embodied in those people today. And it resonates, when you're even the most accomplished people in our business. I mean, I'm competing against publicly traded companies that have been around 10 times longer with $1 gazillion more for clients, for talent. Like, how do I win? What's the special formula? The authentic mission of building something, the cultural aspects of it. Those are the things that really carry us to this moment today. That's what attracts people to us. It's what keeps them with us. And that has been the foundation of my whole life. And now expand that out. It's easy to be a good person when it's easy, but when you're looking at yourself in the mirror, you have to, make those determinations when no one else is looking, when it's hard. I mean, temptation is around you in every respect. It's hard to be a good person. It really is in my mind. And people fall short, and doesn't mean they can't reinvent themselves, but, trying to espouse that and communicate that to people and being authentic. I mean, that to me, what culture's about. Now, in addition to that, there are things beyond just the feel good life things that I'm talking about. Like, we're ambitious. We want to do great things, and doing great things doesn't just happen on its own. No one joined Franklin Street or any of my businesses to be my friend. I mean, I want to be friends, don't get me wrong, and we're social, but they came to do great things, and that means I need to tell them the truth. I'm very demanding in my work. I expect the best out of people. I push them to do more. I push them to be their best, and I think that's cultural too. It's not a social club where we can talk about how hard it is and why it's going wrong, and it's about pushing. And it's, there's bad days and good days, there's wins and there's losses, but you got to show up the same, every day regardless. And I think that, when you put that all together, it's a culture of people who care about each other, who are there to build something together, to write their own story, to be part of something, but who also have high expectations of accomplishment, that want to see their lives turn out a certain way. And that's, been probably the most important thing to me personally in a day to day. That's why I have passion around it. Like we were talking about, why did I leave Frank Street, or why am I back, or why, because this is who I am. This is what I care about. And all these people that are part of that and believe in it, trying to build their careers. I mean, that's why they came, and it's real, so I show up with the same message every day. And it's, sometimes I'll give speeches and I'll tell people to quit, leave, and it's not because I'm trying to be mean, but it's not for everyone. It's hard enough to do great things when everyone's pulling in the same direction. it's really hard when people are kind of attacking it, and it's easy
Right.
to sit on the sidelines and say, why not? I can tell you all the reasons why I shouldn't be successful or won't be successful. It's really hard to see that and overcome and to continue to, kind of fight the battle. And that to me is one of the things that, gets me up, gets me excited, particularly seeing young people come into it and finding their careers and their lives, and they're struggling, they have self-doubt, and they're like, how am I going to, be this aspirational person? But you work.
You
put your head
probably
down.
see yourself in these young kids that, like I say kids, but the younger people that join your organization. You're
I
like,
do.
hey man, just wait,
I do. And I like telling them that I was them.
Yeah, yeah.
I've done every job. I've grinded. I've had so many sleepless nights. There's so much that I've sacrificed in my life that people, I'm not well traveled. I'm not, I can't, first time I went out of the country, like I've been to Mexico and Canada and the Caribbean, but I mean like over an ocean was 2 summers ago.
Wow, really?
Well, when you're having 5 kids and building businesses, and doing all sorts of community work, you can't do it all in life. But now they're getting older, and as going back to my wife's interventions with me,
Hey,
we're on the clock. So
it's time for a trip to France.
yeah,
What do you say?
exactly.
So where's Franklin Street today? How many associates? How many offices? Where are you guys at?
We have 10 offices. So Tampa, Orlando, Jacksonville, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Atlanta, Charlotte, Nashville, Cincinnati, Austin, and we're actively working on Dallas.
Actively working on Dallas. Wow. And how many total associates?
We have roughly 400 people under the Franklin Street brand.
Wow. Wow.
I'd
And
say half of it is salespeople and half of it is, infrastructure.
and now obviously Franklin Street doesn't mean you might disagree obviously, but it doesn't mean anything in Austin, meaning there's probably no Franklin Street, or even if that is, that's not where the name comes from. Did you imagine when you were younger you'd have multiple offices across Florida and sounds like across the Southeast?
Yeah. I mean, younger is relative. When I started the company, this was always the vision. We
Oh,
want
it was.
Yeah.
So it was never supposed to be just this local little firm. You wanted to do your own thing here. You wanted to scale it. That was, you
we
always
opened
had
up
that in
Atlanta
mind.
in 2009. So, and we opened up Atlanta and Jacksonville in 2009. We
I didn't
moved
know that.
Fort
Wow.
Lauderdale in 2010. So it was always about, building something bigger. Now, I didn't fully understand what that meant when I,
Right.
was doing that. And there's been a lot of challenge around that, but, that has always been the vision. And the interesting thing is we are actually somewhat known in Texas. We have a very large insurance presence there. They have, it's an excess and surplus market, a lot of pipes bursting and hurricanes hitting and all sorts of, elevated risks. So we have a lot of clients there, but most people know us in the way that they do business with us. So the people there think we're an insurance company. Well, we're not. I mean, we are, but we're not.
Sure.
So there's a little bit of brand recognition. And also the world gets smaller. People who invest in Florida also invest in Texas. And so there's also a lot of client overlaps between them. So it's amazing. We've built our own, we're very technology focused and very tech forward. We built our own proprietary database system. It's kind of a mashup between like a Salesforce and a Facebook. Think of it that way.
Interesting.
But it allows us to, people, properties, companies are the basis of it, and they're all tied together through activities and various things. But it allows us to triangulate. You ever been on online where it's like, Garrett's friends with my friend, John.
Yeah.
I didn't know you guys knew
What
each other.
do they call it on LinkedIn? Like degree, right?
Yeah.
3rd degree connection or whatever.
Correct.
Yeah.
7 degrees of separation. Go back to that.
Right.
But that helps us to kind of triangulate who knows who. And so it's always amazing to me when new people join the organization. And there's always a hard process of doing what you used to do to what we're doing now for them. But once they get integrated in the system and they see the power of the connectivity, the world gets smaller. And so we actually are fairly well known, even in markets that we're not in.
Very interesting. So the brokers can connect through different markets. Like, hey, I got a guy coming into town, work with my guy over in Tampa. He's coming from Austin, et cetera. Stuff like that.
Exactly.
That's interesting. You have a technology platform where they can communicate, like a Facebook page, and share like deals and information and, hey, here's something coming to your market, whatever.
I mean, there's various levels of security. So it's not like fully open because,
Right.
if I have your personal cell phone number, I don't necessarily want to give it to everyone, but I want people to know if they're going to call you that you're a client of mine. So there's, that we spent a decade building millions of dollars developing it, and it's never done.
Wow.
Because the technology advances.
What do you call it? Do you have a
Frankie.
name? Frankie. You got to hop on Frankie. You got to use
Got to
Frankie.
get in Frankie. Oh yeah.
Interesting. So this is a huge part of your organization? I mean, it sounds like you've made a massive investment into this thing.
Well, everyone's in the technology business.
Yeah.
I think I tell people everyone's in the real estate business, everyone's in the technology business. And, I guess we've always been early adopters. I mean, AI has been in our business all over the place, in all of our businesses, data and information collection and then coordination. I don't know what business isn't,
It's true.
doing that or
Especially today.
should be.
Should be.
Absolutely.
Absolutely take advantage. Let's shift to Ally Capital. That's
Okay.
how you pronounce it, right?
Yeah.
Ally Capital. So that all started with the bankruptcy story that you talked about earlier, right? You're navigating these deals, you're gaining trust with some of these wealthy people that have these investments, you're helping them, especially your mentor, navigate his issues, and at the same time picking up these distressed properties with other investors as well. And so you grow this thing out. And what year are you starting to grow this out? And what was your first big like local investment or development people would know?
Well, a lot of them you wouldn't know. They were C-class apartments in the middle of nowhere. We bought a deal in Palmetto for $10,000 a unit.
What?
And the day before closing, there was an execution, on the property. So I wouldn't say I was buying.
Now you don't say murder. You're saying execution.
No, I mean a murder, an execute. Like they pulled him out of the apartment, they shot him in the head the day before closing.
Like a literal execution of someone.
Yes, and you're buying. I'll be there tomorrow. Can't wait.
Holy smokes!
So I bought a deal in Immokalee, Florida. Bought a bunch of deals up in Temple Terrace. We bought a deal in Largo. So everything was. I mean, it's crazy to think back now.
Yeah.
On deals that are trading for $200,000 a unit that I watched trade for $30,000 a unit not that long ago. At least in my mind, I don't feel like I'm that old to be able to remember that type of stuff. And part of what. And so I bought a bunch of properties from 2009 to 2015, and then probably because a little bit your PTSD of watching the world collapse and everyone go bankrupt, and you're thinking that something bad's going to happen again. We started selling off everything, and really didn't buy very much. So we sold I was pretty much out of almost all of our investments by like 2017, and then we were picking our spots because I was thinking that there's an imminent collapse, things were overheated again, and so we really stopped buying. I almost on all apartments at that point in time. Just kind of stopped buying, started waiting, picking our spots, and then.
Did you think there was an imminent collapse because of the time of, there was sort of a bull run, right? I mean, after the recession, things have sort of gone up since then. COVID might be an anomaly, but we've had a long bull run in real estate. Was it just timing? Like, okay, it's got to happen soon.
I think so. That was part of it. I mean, part of it was also looking at the trends and where we were. And I really think we were heading into a slowdown, or I won't say a collapse. That was not where we were.
Yeah.
But you were at the end of the cycle, end of the bull run going into, and then COVID, it's like it's musical chairs. And rather than taking a chair out, I put 7 chairs down, and it just put gas on the fire from, 2020 to 2022. I mean, we had so much growth over that 2-year period in rents and everything that was just, it's not in anyone's model. No one projected 25% rent growth, kind of thing.
Well, no. And it also sounds like you had the capital. You were offloading.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of in preparation, it sounds like, for a downturn to be able to take advantage of that.
Yep.
So your trigger
But
was
instead
kind of cocked.
Instead I watched it run up. Deals that I passed on, I watched them sell and make money. And I mean, that's the hard part. Real estate's one of the only things where rich people can go bankrupt and liars and cheaters can get rich. It's all about timing. Illiquidity and capital intensity. Those two things kind of combine on timing. Really, I mean, if you bought a deal at if I lied to everyone in my investment group and I paid 30% more than I should in 2019, I was a genius in 2021. I sold it and made $1 gazillion. If I bought something in January of 2022 at 20% below market, I got cleaned out. So it's relative to timing. And I think one of the hard things about real estate investment is trying to be disciplined when you're watching other people make money. Because, I could have bought that deal. I could do that. I was looking at it. I just didn't, I didn't get aggressive enough on my assumptions because I didn't believe in it. But then you watch someone buy it and then they, make a bunch of money on it. So it's hard.
So how do you navigate, do you have a thought of like, damn, we shouldn't have sold that? I mean, of course you do in a certain way, but how do you navigate that moving forward, right? Because a lot of the deals, it sounds like you bought during that run have double, triple, 5x in value. So how do you navigate that moving forward? Like, do you use that metric? Like, okay, we'll never sell this asset. This asset we're going to keep, refinance, 5 years, 10 years, et cetera, down the road. Like, do you think about that? Like, damn, we shouldn't have
I
sold
don't
that.
think you can ever say you're never going to sell something.
Sure.
I think one of the problems in real estate is there's ego. People like owning things just to say that they own it. And that's a not a good situation because you talk yourself into things that doesn't make sense. And there's not one simple answer. I mean, there's basis and depreciation. There's what's going on around you. There's a lot of if someone wants to pay you. So transaction. If you think about transactions, it's really not about price. It's about assumptions. And if you think about assumptions, these are the most aggressive assumptions, and these are the most conservative assumptions. We've been transacting for a long time on the aggressive range. To buy an apartment building in 2021, you had to be assuming 6-7% rent growth and exit caps, at sub 4%, just to make it make sense to be able to buy it. Kind of fast forward to today, rent growth is 0 or maybe slightly positive now. It's been negative or flat, and exit caps are in the high 5s. Even though I don't believe that's true, you're on the more conservative part of the range. That's where I try to think about things. If I can sell the blue sky, if I can get someone to bite off on aggressive assumptions to pay me more than they should, then I'll sell it. If I'm on the conservative side of the range where I'm basically selling it for a fair deal, then why would I sell it today if it's a good asset and what it is? So there's a lot of tea leaf reading, and I don't have I wish I had the crystal ball, but I don't. We just try to not make mistakes. The worst deal I've ever done is a 14 IRR on a 4-year hold. That's the worst deal I've ever done. So it's, why? It's because, of what I'm explaining. It's like I pick my spots. And the deals that I bought kind of so I bought a bunch of deals that were distressed and we made a bunch of money. And then I was kind of quiet for a while. And then, 2018 to now, I've been buying very more complicated situations. I bought the Austin Center on Westshore in 2019. At the time I bought that, it was 30% occupied, asbestos in every building, every roof had to be replaced.
Let's pull that one up. Was that your first sort of prominent landmark property? Because we were talking about something people would know, and it sounds like you were buying, these old 70s vintage, 80s vintage apartments on Palmetto, kind of tertiary markets. But now you own some awesome stuff like in the city, on these defined streets, things that are sort of trophy assets, really.
We have some good stuff. I mean, Austin
Awesome
Center,
stuff.
Westshore City Center, I should appropriately call it. But at the time, the Austin Center was one of the most prolific parcels in Tampa.
Yeah.
In part because its history. It was the first developments in Westshore, early 70s constructed. Everyone's got a story about when they were there at the jazz club or when they were there, seeing a movie or being in Al Austin's office or whatever they're doing. But it also represented 10.5 acres in Westshore, which was prime for redevelopment. And so that was definitely, I think people thought I was crazy when I bought it because it was a big, heavy lift. But, kind of fast forward to today, and it's been a great performing asset, for us. We bought the Sundial in a distressed situation in a partnership. We bought what was the Indigo Hotel, also down in St. Pete, out of a bank. 2 other people were fighting over it. It was in bankruptcy. We came in because of my experience, took the asset out in the 363 auction. I bought, an acre of land in downtown St. Pete for $8 million.
Wow.
But it was complicated. I mean, it was messy. A lot of infighting, a lot of legals. I'm getting deposed. All sorts of crazy stuff there. And then, we bought the Urban Center 2 years ago. Buying almost, 560,000 square foot Class A office building in May of 2023. When no one's going back to work ever, everyone's working from home for the rest of time. We kind of picked our spots in being a little bit more unique. We weren't buying the apartment buildings down the center for 3 caps. We were buying these unique situations that were troubled or distressed and then using our expertise to execute on them.
Sort of your forte. Most investors or people look at that and go, it's too messy. I don't want to deal with it. But then that sort of breeds opportunity for guys like you. Then you can go in and use your expertise where other people wouldn't. Do you ever?
Expertise is only valued when it's needed.
Do you like the fight?
I wouldn't say I like the fight. I do a lot of, unfortunately, I'm not afraid of conflict, and I end up in a lot of situations
And you
where,
know you're getting into the fight. I mean, you know these deals are going to be messy. There's already a legal battle happening, and here you are jumping into the mix.
yes, I'm not afraid of it, but to say I like it, I mean, it's stressful,
Yeah.
and it's going back to, I'm a people person. I don't want to be in conflict, but I'm also very principled and very pragmatic, and I understand, what part of why people don't want to get into the messy is because they don't know what's going to happen. Because I've been involved in so many things, I kind of already know what the outcomes are going to look like. When we bought the Sundial, we knew that there's this easement agreement between that property and the AMC theater, which AMC doesn't own the parcel, and it was valuable. It was part of the reason why we bought it. Of course,
Let's talk about the Sundial because that's sort of an interesting property. Do you guys still own the
yeah,
Sundial?
yeah,
Still own the Sundial. Now, that used to be, I think, I guess it would have been before it had issues. I'm thinking a long time ago. It was like the spot, right?
Baywalk.
Baywalk. Yeah. I mean, I don't remember going there a whole lot as a kid. I grew up sort of in Tampa. Didn't really cross the bridge unless it was like to go to
Gotta
the
go
beach.
up a little bit.
Sundial
Right
parking
there,
garage,
right where you are.
right there. So you see it, David, with the now you
Well, so
own the entire parcel.
yeah, but before you even get off of that, that's the old courtyard. So if you look at it, so originally it was Baywalk. On the bottom of it, it was actually built at the same time as Channel Side Bay Plaza.
Mm,
No longer Channel Side Bay Plaza, but it
right.
was originally bought as that. And they were constructed the same, which was, they were built in these O's where there's a central courtyard, but they're closed in.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
And so when Bill Edwards bought it, he demolished that kind of central building, and he put in the world's largest sundial, and put on all these hardscapes, and we ripped all that out because there's no interaction with the sundial. It's like, oh, cool, it's the world's largest sundial. Let's go somewhere fun.
Anyway, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So we converted it to be more like Sparkman Wharf, where there's a bunch of green space. There's a stage.
Activity.
We were kind of setting it up for activity. Forbichi's going in, where the sea salt space was. We have other entertainment
That's super exciting.
concepts going in there. We put Pre-Novu, which is kind of a cool wellness concept that's going on, and I also like these covered land plays. When you're talking about Austin, the Westshore City Center, 10.5 acres, which we run it as an office building, and we're making a bunch of money doing it. Eventually, it'll be torn down. There's 75,000 square feet of retail here. It's awesome. We're going to do great on it, but eventually it's going to be torn down. I don't know if that's in 10 years or 20 years or whenever the leases burn off.
It's a skyscraper one day.
I mean, at some point it's going to be.
Right.
So I always like those kind of deals too when I'm looking at them, where here's plan A, but there's kind of plan B and C. You got a lottery ticket in the background.
Interesting.
In terms of upside potential. So you have multiple ways to make sure you're okay if things go wrong.
Is that sort of a risk mitigation perspective too? Because like, hey, if for whatever reason, the retail play doesn't work, we can always sell it to a developer or develop it ourselves or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's, definitely part of it. We always try to look at it, but, kind of going back, the parcel directly to the north, the big kind of roof there where the AMC theater is, those were developed together. And so there's an operation and easement agreement that governs development and uses and operations. And there's some valuable components of that. So, when we bought that, we knew about it.
And just so people listening know, it's this entire block. You can sort of see almost like this flat roof structure and the Sundial property.
The
It's
flat
this
roof
entire big
structure is
square.
owned by somebody else, and that's what I'm talking about. The U shape on the bottom is the retail plaza that we own.
Got
And
it.
then just by coincidence, that building right there is the building I bought out of bankruptcy. This kind of like T-shaped building with the pool.
Oh, that was the Indigo?
That was the Indigo Hotel that we rebranded, for a short period of time.
Still own it?
Still own it. Yep. Well, eventually, we're going to build a high-rise apartment building on it. But, development's pretty tough today, just with interest rates and construction costs and rental rates. But kind of going back to this, there's a lot of value in this agreement. And so, we ended up getting into a lawsuit with the owner of the neighboring property. I think we're resolved and we're all kind of working together now. But, I wouldn't say going back to, I wasn't looking for a fight, but I'm going to protect my interests. And I think that's, oftentimes where I get into these situations where you're, just trying to protect your interests. You're not trying to do anything wrong.
And explain one more time. I sort of missed it. What was the issue here? So you own the U-shaped property. You do not own this north section of it, which is the movie theater.
Yep.
And where was the issue with the easement?
So an acre of land isn't worth an acre of land, right? If I can build a house on an acre or I can build a high rise on an acre, they're both an acre of land, but the value is substantially different. The agreement that we have with that theater prevents them from prevents us as well. So both of us cannot develop anything basically than what's there, a 2-story retail complex. If we dissolve that agreement, then it could be a high rise. The difference in value between something, 2 acres that you can build a 2-story retail complex on, or 2 acres that you can build a high rise condo, 375-foot condo tower on, or hotel or apartment, is tens of millions of dollars of difference. And so that they want out of that agreement. We don't let them out of that agreement. And so that, led to conflict.
They want to stay in the agreement.
They don't
want to stay in the agreement
because it unlocks tens of millions of dollars of value for them.
And you would want to stay in the agreement. Why? Don't you also want to unlock that ability to develop?
Well, I mean, we have long-term leases that, aren't going anywhere. So if we want to develop it tomorrow, it's a little bit more difficult because you got to buy all these leases and there's a lot of elements to that.
Whereas they could like tear down the movie theater and.
I mean, it's not that simple. They do have a tenant in AMC in the movie theater, but
one tenant, right?
Yeah, we're not in the same situation, and we are comfortable operating in where it is, and so we've had, I won't get too deep into it,
sure.
but we ended up getting into a lawsuit, related to that. And, going back to, I'm not looking for the fights, but
yeah,
I think they actually filed the initial action and we didn't,
and this is just me asking, like, obviously we can skip this if it's is it still being litigated?
It
now?
is.
It is. Maybe it's, but on this movie theater, I mean, wouldn't it help this retail if that was developed into a large apartment complex or a condo?
Yes, it would. Yep. It wouldn't hurt, but who develops it and how that gets resolved when you have something of value.
So it's deeper than just, hey, a more intense use would help us.
Well, I'll put it to you this way. If you have something of tremendous value, do you give it up for nothing?
Right.
Because I don't.
No. Yeah, no.
I don't.
Is the answer. No.
Yeah. Because, no, but it will be good for you though. Okay, that's true, but I still have something of value. So,
right.
So there's, it's more than that.
Got it.
And so, I think we're in a good place, with our neighbor at this point in time. I mean, the temperature's turned down. I think we're being more understanding of it. We're going to be there. I'm not going anywhere. So I'll be there for a while.
It's an awesome property. I mean, it's
and then eventually, something's going to happen there.
It's also so unique to St. Pete. Like, I'm trying to think of another property in St. Pete with this design that has this sort of like Sparkman Wharf feel, which was, like you said, that was that original Channelside development built in the same era. You've kind of done the same thing where you've opened up that middle courtyard space. It's super unique. Like I'm trying to think in St. Pete.
There's nothing that has that contiguous amount of retail all in one spot. And if you zoom out a little bit, I mean, you're 2 blocks from the pier.
You're right there. I mean, the park,
you're right next to the museum. Everything is right there. The Vinoy, kind of right at the top.
And then you're connected to the lake on the west side. It's a beautiful street.
It's a central piece, and you can look at all those things together. And at some point, we're going to redevelop those. But both of these deals that I got involved with were complicated deals that had a bunch of hair on them that were, messy, and we had to figure it out. Expertise is only valuable when it's needed.
Let me ask you this, because so I've got a 2-year-old boy. We were talking a little bit before. My wife is due in like 2 weeks. Okay. So I think, and this is just me almost guessing, I feel like my capacity to deal with anything close to this level of, I'm going to call it a headache, right? Hairy deals, right? I feel like it's going to get reduced and reduced and reduced. That being said, you have 5 daughters and a wife and this brokerage and these 400 people that sort of look up to you. We talked about you driving the culture and, everything that comes along with that. And yet here you are sort of taking on these very complicated, hairy deals. How do you navigate the pressures that come with that? And then you walk in your door and now you have to be a dad and now you have to run the show there.
Well, it's interesting. Before I had my first child, going back, kind of started a company, and then then I find out I'm pregnant. I'm going, it's probably when everyone finds out they're having a kid for the first time, they go, is this real?
Especially for the father. It's like, wait, what?
It's like, wait, what? And your whole life changes. But, the birth of the child is kind of the opposite of what I think people expect. all of that pressure and stress kind of goes away because your life now has purpose, at least for me, right? Before having a child, you're selfish. I mean, people only, I mean, and I don't mean that everyone is,
Yeah.
you're living for yourself and figuring out yourself. I mean, even marriage, I mean, it's a step in that direction, but we're married today, maybe we're not married tomorrow, right? You're always my child for the rest of time, right? And for me, having that child actually framed everything where I was stressing about all this stuff. And why am I stressing? For my ego, for money, for, I don't know, no real reason. All of a sudden I have a kid and the focus is why I'm doing all the things that I'm doing. So that was kind of at the very beginning to me. It gives you motivation. And like today, no matter what my day's like, the best, medicine I can have is to go home to my 5 and 7-year-old and be like, Daddy, let's get
Wow,
together and hang
man.
out.
So you
So
you
it's
see them as like your little superpower. You use them,
for sure.
as that, hey, I don't care what I have to deal with. Like if it's right, it's right. If it's a good deal, it's a good deal.
Well, I think it's part of it. I think, another part of it was, I mean, people call things, and I'm great, so don't misread what I'm saying, but like they call it a midlife crisis for a reason, right? All of a sudden, you're at a point where you have pressure from every aspect. I mean, it's like peak pressure in life, from kids to work to relationship to aging parents to all sorts of things that are going on all at one point in time. And it crushes people. And, for me, probably where I was in my, hardest moments was when my dad got sick, and, he got a double lung transplant. He was sick for 6 years, leading up to it. And, I'm sitting in Emory Hospital because that's where I got the transplant. And I remember it's like a very, very challenging time in my life, and you're trying to frame it. And I do, I wouldn't say a lot of reading, but I love historical stuff. It just gives you context because, we're not the first person to go through challenging things.
Yep.
And I came across a Theodore Roosevelt quote that it's not well known. It's not the man in the arena or one of these like things that everybody knows. It was a 1904 World Fair. And it was, the gist of it. I'm not going to get it perfectly right. People can Google it and look it up. But
David.
yeah, good luck. But basically, life's greatest gift is hard work worth doing. To be bent by too great a load is bad. To be broken by it is lamentable. But even in that, the possibilities are glorious. But to carry no burdens at all, there is nothing in that. And I think that helped frame like all these things in my life, whether it's, and not like, dealing with some real estate, some big complicated
Sure.
existential thing. I mean, we're not saving the world here, but, it's such a privilege for me to have all of this responsibility. In dealing with a lot of the things in the projects, it's not just about making money and winning. It's about improving the neighborhood and the area. It's kind of, there's so much to do, and things don't just happen by themselves. You are the community you create. And I found myself, I don't know how, not being from here, not being, from a affluent background, just kind of all of a sudden in a place where I can make a difference on all sorts of things. I have the privilege of being, involved in all of these things. And yeah, it's hard. There's no doubt about it, but to carry no burdens, there's nothing in that. And so, for me, it's allowed me to detach at some level from all of these things and just kind of focus on the work, kind of step by step, bite by bite. It's like the old how to eat an elephant one bite at a time.
Yeah.
I try not to think about what I'm doing, and all the things that are going on. I think about what I'm doing today.
And if you were to pull, I think if any human being was to write down all of the different things they do, even someone like your father who worked a steady job for 30 years, even if he laid down, I have a wife, I have these children to take care of, I have the responsibility and the burdens of being, the moneymaker in the family. Like any human being that looked at their life in a sort of anxious way, yeah, it's going to make you feel probably pretty crazy and probably super nerve-wracking to lay it all out like that. But to have none of it is a meaningless life.
I mean, you flip it. I mean, like, let's just say you had none of those things and
None
you
of those
sat in
things.
virtual reality and had no purpose. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's, some of the most depressed people I know have more money than they know what to do with, and they have no definition of who they are or what they're doing or why they're doing. They live in the shadow of somebody else and they have no identity and they're empty. It's like, that's not the way to live life. It's the way to live life in my mind is to find these things that challenge you. And it doesn't have to be, big projects and
Yeah.
this big existential stuff. I mean, just day-to-day life is hard enough.
Right.
Getting up and, it's really what most of my family's been, having both parents work and struggling to figure out how they're going to, do this or do that. Vacations, like piling in the minivan and driving to the beach. I mean, there's a lot of courage and strength in that. There's a lot of burdens that are be carried in that. And that's where I think framing it, it's like, Dabo Sweeney, pressure is a privilege. It is suffering is sacred. These are some terms, these aren't my terms, but these are things that have really resonated with me when you kind of think about the pressure, because if you don't frame it in that way, it can be a really, heavy burden. It can overwhelm you. And, what greater privilege, tying it back to kids, is it to be a father, to be able to influence these, people's lives, and hardest job you'll ever do,
That's for sure.
by a mile. 2 to 13, 2 to 12, those are the golden years for sure. Once they get older, then they're independent and, bigger problems. Before 2, it's physical labor
Yeah.
and sleeplessness. But, I'm a very family oriented person. I don't, I'm at my kids' games. I don't miss parent teacher conferences. I'm involved in their school. I coach coach flag football, which is fun, kind of get involved with. And,
Wow.
Cool. To carry no burdens, there's nothing in that.
Wow. David, pull that is that a book from Theodore Roosevelt? I'd love to read it, whatever it is. You said it was a speech at the World's Fair.
1904 World Fair.
I'll have to look that up. And I pressure is a privilege is super interesting. You talk about a hard job too. I was my wife right now, obviously we're having that baby coming soon. So we're sort of getting the house around and getting the baby's room ready and moving our 2-year-old into his room and that whole thing. And I came into my house and my wife had all the newborn clothes from my 2-year-old that we had kept on the table. And then she had another like bunch of laundry on the dining room. And I looked at it and I thought, there's so much shit that I deal with that I don't even think about that she has to deal with. And it sort of put things in perspective for me. Like, whoa, like she's freaking working just as hard as I am, but it's in a different way. And then we have the same goal, right? We're like supporting our family. And it made me realize, holy shit, this is a big fat team effort. I mean, I knew that, but walking in and seeing her physical effort right there on the table hit home for me. I was like, wow.
I always love when people ask me, does your wife work? Yeah,
Yeah.
she does.
Big time.
She sure does.
Big time.
We're a high performing family.
You have to be, right?
Just the logistics of getting people everywhere. And you say laundry never stops in my house. I mean, just constant.
I got one with 5. I can't imagine.
Yeah. I mean, think about going out to dinner, it's like parties of 6 or more. You got to like call the group reservation line.
Oh, shit.
And we have 7. I mean, anytime you want
got that on speed dial.
Get in the car. I mean, it's like all these things that makes your life, more challenging but fulfilled. But, my wife deals with all those things in a big way. And no, it's that goes back to like life is about being productive. It's about having purpose. It's about, raising kids or doing hard things. It's not about sitting around doing nothing.
Yeah.
Sitting on a boat staring. I mean, I like to do fun things too, but that's not what I spend most of my time doing.
Sounds like you find joy in the work of it too. I mean, the success of these projects, moving forward with these deals, it's maybe a part of it for you could be about the win, like, wow, we won, we did it. But it almost sounds like building the community, like redeveloping this region, building back Tampa. We kind of touched on Westshore. I want to shift to Westshore next and talk about the future, what it could be, and all that sort of stuff. Sounds like that is where a lot of your passion lies moving forward, is transitioning. And I'm sure you're in, like you mentioned today, you're in multiple different markets. But for you, it sounds like Westshore is a big stake in the ground. And it sounds like that's where you really want to make a mark and really want to develop something special there.
Yeah, it's kind of happened. I mean, things that I'm passionate about are varied. I mean, I'm a big community, person. I'm very involved in a number of things. Westshore just happens to be a place where I've aggregated a number of opportunities. I mean, starting with the Austin Center, it just de facto owning that property makes you a player in that space. We bought the AAA Center, which is like that little field, kind of right above it. Then we bought the Urban Center. So, I'm one of the largest private owners of real estate in Westshore from a dollar amount standpoint, and also very knowledgeable about real estate. When you look at the Westshore district, it was the original development area. Downtown was industrial and very, very difficult. And, Ybor had its renaissance kind of a while ago, and it's trying to reinvent itself. Big fans, rooting on Daryl and those guys. I think that has a lot of potential. But like, who's really championing the redevelopment of Westshore? Right. People are kind of like, oh, that's already been done. But it's very tired. There's a lot of highways. There's no real pedestrian center. The road's not kept up very well. The streetscapes isn't kept up very well. They're making a lot of progress. Michael Marino I know is on, and the Westshore Alliance is they're doing the public art and they're working on a lot of improvements. But it's central. I mean, oh yeah, it's all the infrastructure's right here. The airport's right here, And I think there's enough land around there where over the next, 15, 20 years, you're going to see a tremendous transformation that, you start stringing these things together, right? So, Westshore, Midtown, the Riverwalk, the West River, downtown, Ybor.
Yeah.
I mean, these have all, think about in the last 10 years, how far all these projects have kind of popped up. But we need someone in the West Shore district to really champion that and drive that forward. And, I wouldn't say that I just decided I want to be passionate about West Shore, but
Right.
after being there, my office is there. I spent a lot of time there, looking at the community around there, Lincoln Gardens, Carver City, a lot of history in that neighborhood.
People don't know about it, but yeah, there is a lot of history.
Yeah, it's a proud history. I mean, sad history in a number of ways, but proud history. And, I just happen to be that person with all the knowledge. I know what's going on. I know all the players. I have a vision for what it could be. And I spent a lot of time on it, actually.
This Austin Center is the property north of 275 where Union is, right? This whole office complex. You just said you bought a property behind it or to the north of it?
Just to the north of it. So
that empty
keep zooming
lot.
in. Yeah, zoom in a little bit more. So that lot right at the top of the screen.
Got it.
It's 3 acres right there.
And so total, what do you own on this particular portion of Westshore?
In terms of acreage, 13.5 acres.
13.5 acres. Okay.
So we have 300,000 square feet of office buildings and parking structures here, and then 3 acres up top. And then 3 acres up top, we got it rezoned, so we're approved for, I think it's 360 roughly apartments there.
And in sort of the same way, the Sundial, like it is what it is, and it's a great asset, and you don't plan on changing it tomorrow. One day you could go vertical. This is thought of in the same way. Like right now it's office. Maybe one day it's completely scraped and redeveloped into something new.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a certainty. At some point the land value will eclipse the economic value of the buildings. And there's also, you have the multimodal station going in. You
Right.
have, multiple $billion roadway improvements. You have the punchways at Trask, Occident, Rio. I mean, there's the West Shore Mall is going to be redeveloped at some point in time. So there's
Zoom out, David.
There's a lot changing here.
Well, and also too, to me, I mean, Westshore is zoom out all the way to so I can see St. Pete too. Like and what I'm getting at is Westshore is like to me the regional activity center.
It is.
Like look at downtown, right? It's all kind of over to the right. Downtown is whoa, David, where are you going in? Zoom out to the region. Westshore is right across the 275 bridge. You've got the airport right there. Downtown is downtown. It'll serve its purpose. It'll always be the central business district. But Westshore could be like the regional. It really is the regional activity center.
If you were to drop a pin in the middle of Tampa Bay area, you're in Westshore.
You're in Westshore, and again, airport right there. You've got 275.
The veterans going north. Courtney Campbell to Clearwater. The
high demographic market to the south in terms of income and all that sort of stuff. So zoom back into Westshore. What do you believe? Now there's the private and the public partnership between any sort of community being redeveloped, right? What do you think Westshore needs in order to fully see this vision? Obviously, you're going to do what you're going to do on your property, right? But in terms of like streetscape, grid connectivity, like what do you think needs to happen there in order for your development in particular to be a success?
It needs to become a walkable center. I mean, when this was all developed, it's very car centric. So you basically have, not literal highways, but I mean, I guess you have one literal highway.
Yeah.
But Westshore, Lois, Boy Scout, those don't feel good to walk across.
Mm-mm.
And there's no real center. And so I think that's ultimately, at some point what you need. And when you think about the transit future, again, I don't know when, but the airport built their, rental car center where the office is down, and then eventually they'll connect along the highway down to the multimodal station. That's kind of where the Charlie's is at the bottom of the screen there. And when you have a transit center that eventually will connect some place to downtown and to the rest of the evolution of that, you got to have a place to go. So I get off of the multimodal station and then I do what?
Then what? Right.
Right. So eventually there needs to be a pedestrian center where people feel comfortable kind of walking around and being in the neighborhood. And I think that there's also a need to, really be thoughtful about the mixes of uses and kind of the programming of it. I mean, we were talking earlier about things are market driven. They're not like what I want it to be.
Right.
So I think there also needs to be a lot of community input, but it starts by laying down a vision. And even if you disagree with the vision, people will start to say, I like this, I don't like this. It helps you evolve. And so I hope, sometime in the relative near future, I'll be able to put out my vision of what Westshore will be.
Isn't it sort of what you want? I mean, you mentioned it's market driven. Anything is market driven, but a couple people on the show, notably like Jeff Vinnick with what he did and what Daryl's doing. I mean, Daryl has the history to build upon, and Ebor's story has been told for over 100 years, and he's kind of taking it maybe the next 100, right? But some of what they're doing, they don't necessarily have to do it the way they're doing it. They're investing extra in certain places, like with Vinnick did these wide streets and these mature trees, and some of the stuff he's doing, he wanted to bring excellence to that part of the market, and we hadn't really seen that before. So isn't a part of it sort of like your vision and kind of what you'd like to see?
I would argue what Jeff was advancing was what the community really wanted. When you look at other successful areas, the market proved that those buildings that were on walkable streets that were more pedestrian centric led to higher rental rates. So, I think that, and really, with Jeff was just a visionary in terms of, he buys a team, he's moving down here, he's, see all this vacant land around, and, kind of starts accumulating, brings on a partner, starts reading about it like he does, starts getting smart, reads like what Jeff Speck, his Walkable Cities book, and then hired a great team around him of people who could kind of realize that vision. But there's also a lot of things that they wanted that they didn't obtain. I mean, most notably, they were going to bring in national headquarters or regional headquarters to the area, and it didn't materialize because the market didn't, wasn't there for it, right? So I think that there's an element of, you got to lay down a vision, and you got to lay down what you think is, he's a smart guy, and I'm okay, like you got to lay down a vision of what it could be, and then you got to get input. And you got to see what what it wants to be, and then when if you hold on to it too tight, the dad doesn't want it, but I'm going to push it forward, then that's not going to be successful either. So I think they did a great job of building all the things at the same time. I mean, if you built one building, I don't know if it's successful. When you build kind of the first 20 acres, it's success with a mix of uses and create a place. I mean, it's a different type of thing.
That right there is what you'll end up doing on this property.
I mean,
you're not just going to tear this all down and build one building.
Yeah, right? I mean, it goes back to that's just one property. There's a lot, in this area that has the potential to be reimagined, and I think in the not too distant future, I'll be in a position to unveil a vision as a starting point.
I like the sound of that.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see.
Long way from here to there.
And then the Westshore Mall. That's for sale currently.
Is
that something you're interested in?
Yeah, I mean, short answer is yes.
Right.
Longer answer is at what price.
Right.
And there's a lot of history there in terms of who owns it and how they ended up owning it, and what their plan is for their business. And there's a lot to a lot from here to there. I mean, everyone starts like, what a great piece of land,
right.
60 acres or 55 acres.
All facts,
all right here. And it's not as easy as just having a great piece of land. There's a lot that goes into getting it from what it is to what it will be. There's phasing, elements of it. There's fill elements of it.
Take me south a little bit, David, because one thing I'm super excited for is FDOT's plan with the multimodal center, which is directly south of the school.
Yes. So kind of right at the corner of Trask and Cypress.
So this is
that
key.
Building's gone.
This
now.
Is absolutely key for your specific opportunity, and it's called the Westshore City Center. Okay, so that multimodal center is right across the street. I mean, I'm sure you're tracking that thing very close. Whatever that's going to sort of turn into. Does FDOT have an exact plan of what they want to do there?
No, it's moved and shifted a little bit. I think they want to do a public-private partnership on it. So if you think about some of these transit stops, if you're going to build one out in, Brooksville, less of a demand for a public-private partnership. Once you build it, it will eventually expand. But to kind of start with it, harder to make it make sense. This is a layup for a public-private partnership. There's, you don't just want to put some parking garages and make it real sterile.
No, I want to get off a plane at Tampa International with my suitcase, take a train to the intermodal center, cross a pedestrian bridge into your development, and get lunch at Union. That's what I want to do.
That sounds like a great vision to me.
And so back to the Westshore Mall and kind of zoom out, David. Not really the Westshore Mall, but FDOT's plan to connect some of these streets that have been totally disrupted by the highway. I think one thing that needs to happen is the reconnectivity of some of these streets.
Yeah, they're putting in Trask, which is the
Which-
north-south, right? One
East of the school.
one to the east. No, it's to the west of the school.
Oh, behind you guys.
Yes, so it's literally right there. That's punching through.
Game changer.
And then Occident, which is kind of in the middle of the Westshore Mall site, very important to that. And then on the far side over here, Rio.
God, they get it, man. I mean, these are super necessary
Well, it used to be that
things.
way. These
Right.
all used to be connected, and then when the highway came in, they closed them all off.
They haven't been connected for how long?
Oh,
Decades.
I mean,
50 years.
Yeah, I
Like,
don't know,
literally.
but I think it might be even longer. Yeah, it's been a long time.
I love that we're moving back towards rebuilding what we had. When you look at these old pictures, we talk about it on the show all the time, but the connectivity, it's not about Tampa. It's really American cities. You can see this in any city across our entire country. They used to be so connected. The street grids, the street cars going all around. And then you look at a map today, it's like, whoa, holy shit. Like, we've actually lost a lot of what we had. So I'm really glad the Florida Department of Transportation sort of recognizes that. And they recognize the value in reconnecting that street grid, especially number one for you at what's the name of the street behind you?
Trask.
And then the street going into the Westshore Mall, 2 game changer connections. You can't shove everyone on Westshore Boulevard.
It's already a problem.
It's already a problem. Yeah. And then so whatever this Westshore Mall turns into, that'll be a really key piece in all of this. And then you own the property across the street, across Kennedy Boulevard, correct?
Yeah, the corner of Kennedy and Westshore, just south there.
Is that Shula's isn't there anymore, is it?
No, that's part of the hotel. So it's actually 3 buildings connected by an atrium. On each side is an office building. We own the 2 office buildings, and in the middle is a hotel that we do not own.
Put that little man on the street. That's interesting. I thought it was all owned by, one owner. Right on the north side of Kennedy, so you can see the building in the
Yeah,
front.
right there.
Yeah, right there. Go down the street a little bit too. So that kind of bulge out is the hotel. You guys own the offices on the east and west side.
Yes.
The West Shore Grand. Wow.
And then there's this atrium that connects them on the inside. But they are 3 separate buildings, two parking garages and 3 buildings.
I think my grandmother's been your tenant for a long time. Ageless medicine on the ground floor.
Yeah, I think she called my office yesterday.
Oh, really? She's been there for a few years. It's a beautiful office building. It's very dramatic too. You walk in and you look up at the atrium. It's like, holy smokes, this place is.
Yeah, I mean, I think
special.
you're asking about the Sheilas. I think there could be a much better atrium experience there, but we don't own the hotel, so hopefully someday.
But I'm sure they're looking for someone, right? I mean, that used to be very popular. So many people that would come in, celebrities or whatever, they would stay here oftentimes, and that steakhouse was kind of a place to be seen.
Yeah, I don't think it's been upgraded since then.
Yeah.
So it's in need of some attention.
So let's talk about. I don't want to keep you here all day. Thank you for doing this, by the way. Next Level Brands, getting into the hospitality business. How did that whole thing start? I mean, you've talked today about your real estate story, and it's very deep. I mean, very deep on the brokerage. You built this brokerage and service business that does insurance and mortgages. You said over 400 people work in that organization, and now today you've sort of stepped back into it and are really redefining it and jumping back in. Ally Capital, done some awesome things there. Bankruptcy, hairy deals, and you're doing this stuff in Westshore, and probably more that we didn't even cover, I'm sure. But also being involved in hospitality, Next Level Brands with Jeff Gigante, who's been on the show and spoke about that at length. Next Level is Union New American for Beachy and Hyde Park Village and Boulogne and Water Street. 3 amazing restaurants people know and love. How did that whole thing transpire? Did he come to you? Did you go to him? How'd that work?
Well, so Jeff and I met originally. I own a building at the corner of Howard and Morrison called the Morrison, where it used to be a gym, and then we tore it down and built a mixed-use building where the ground floor is like Kava and the Booyah and Club Pilates. The second floor is some offices, and then there's
Blind Tiger
apartments.
Coffee, I think.
Blind Tiger's in there, yeah. So at the time, Jeff was part of Chiche Restaurant Group, and we were building it directly across the street. And so we met in an adversarial situation. I mean, it wasn't that we were fighting with each other. It just we had different interests, and that's how we first met. And so we, got to know each other. I love Jeff. I think he's a phenomenal person, and we hit it off right away. And so eventually we went and had lunch at Bar Taco, and even more connected right away. And it was at the time where he was contemplating, breaking off from CRG and starting his own thing, and we had a lot of talks about it. I had no interest in being in the restaurant business. I mean, I'm in the restaurant business. It's called percentage rent. It's the best way to be in the business as a landlord. But restaurants, I think, are always their vanity. People want to do it to say they own it, or to tell their friends they own it, or to walk in and be part of that. And I had zero interest in anything like that. But I love supporting people. And so as Jeff was going through, his process of trying to break out, he asked me for some advice. And so I, talked to him about strategy and finance and legal setup, and that evolved and, to Forbici. And I actually rejected investing in Forbici when it started because I wasn't interested in investing in a restaurant. But then as it progressed and we actually started talking about Westshore City Center and maybe putting a restaurant there, and things, were evolving at CRG, and kind of fast forward, I met Joe Gugino, who had opened up Forbici with Jeff, and I just agreed to help him. I mean, for nothing. And that evolved more and more and more to, okay, well, do you want to build a restaurant or do you want to build a hospitality company? And there's a difference, right? I mean, a hospitality company is I'm an entrepreneur. That's what I am. I'm not really a real estate person, an insurance person, a restaurant person. I'm an entrepreneur. And I've got lots of businesses that didn't work out great that I could tell you about, where I was trying various things. I've been in the landscape business. I've been in the, cabinet refinishing business. I've been in all sorts of stuff and realized it doesn't make sense. And, you'll learn a lot through that. And, if you want to build a real company, I'm interested in that. And so I collect, I don't collect wine in the sense of like full bottles, but I have a whole case of memories where, you have a bottle of wine, everyone signs it, you date it, you put something to remind you of what it was. And so I've probably 50 of them at various moments of my life. And so I have this one where we had a bottle of wine. We talked about what we wanted to build. And from that, they wanted to build a hospitality business, and I was in. And even then, though, it was still going to be like, they're going to be on the operational side. I'm going to focus on raising money and the legal setup, but I'm not really going to be too involved in the business. But then as they started building the business, my experience in building organizations, setting up a corporate infrastructure, not in the store and picking out the music or the vibe or anything like that. I'm involved in the leases and the build outs and the finance and things like that. But, I'm not picking out music. I'm not picking out recipes. You don't want me to. But I really found my role, and I didn't want to be part of it just to be part of it, but I really found my role in helping to create next level brands. And we're just getting started. I mean, from, building restaurants out of COVID, opening up Union and Boulogne at the same time, coming out of COVID, where you don't have the operating base, right? You got to build it so that you have something to then build the operating base. It was challenging to navigate through that, and tremendously fulfilling. Like, I love it. And not because of the restaurants, but because of the people. We have, Heather Rivas, that's emerged. She started out as the general manager of Boulogne, has emerged to our director of operations.
Was she from like the Northeast Maryland, something like that?
She came to us, I think, from Savannah, a restaurant called Husk in Savannah. She had spent some time up in the Northeast in New York and Boston, I think, at various restaurants up there. But she came to us from Savannah.
So I think Jeff told the story like this, like he hired her. I don't want to say strictly on personality, but he was just describing how much he liked her passion and knowledge and her people skills, and he just was immediately attracted to her work ethic, and like hired her on the spot type thing. He told the story on the show. Do you remember that, David, about the woman he hired? I hope I didn't screw that up. I believe that's her, but apparently she's just a killer in that role.
She's phenomenal. Yeah. And actually, I think her father is the one who directed her to apply or somehow connected it. I don't know the exact story because I wasn't directly involved in her hiring, but that's someone that, she came in as a general manager of a restaurant, and, as we're, first you're getting in the starting blocks, and then you watch, people ascend. And it takes more than just technical skill. It takes emotional intelligence. It takes technical experience. It takes fortitude, emotional stability in it. And she's just done a phenomenal job of rising. She's way better at operating restaurants than Jeff is, and he'll tell you that. Yeah, she's really been a game changer. And going back, we have many people who have really ascended and done, phenomenal jobs. We've built a really good corporate infrastructure at Next Level Brands that is going to allow us to open up many more restaurants. So as I think about the future, it's going back to Franklin Street or anything that I've been part of. It's not really about me. It's about building these organizations or doing these projects that allow other people to be part of it and being, involved in that community and watching the hard work of not just her. I mean, I think we have 600 people or something in the restaurant, business. I mean, a lot of, kind of transient hourly,
Sure.
servers and, server assistants but it's a very people centric business
Oh
and
yeah.
it's very, kind of social and it's exciting to watch people who are professionals in that be part of it and get excited about it and see their future in it. Cause I'm not running any of these restaurants. I'm not going to be flying around, doing all this stuff. And Jeff and Joe won't be doing it forever either. So who are we building this company for?
Right.
We're building it for the people that work there. And so that gets me excited, right? To be
Yeah.
able to apply my talents from a organizational development, from a cultural communication standpoint, from the finance, the legal element of it, the creative nature of it. And restaurants are an important part of placemaking and real estate too. So it's not a completely foreign concept to me in terms of what we're looking for. And we only want A spaces. We're not going to go on one ways. We want to understand where the parking, situations are and the convenience of it. We want the build outs to be phenomenal. I mean, there's some things that I think are very important that I've learned by watching failed restaurants through real estate that we're not going to do. And sometimes you're just open. You want to do more. You want to open things up. Like that's not what we're about. And so it's been an extremely rewarding experience that I didn't really fully understand. When I got involved with it, it's way more fun than I thought it was going to be, for not necessarily the reasons people might think.
Interesting. It's way more fun than you thought. It sounds like these other businesses come with these legal challenges. Not that this doesn't. I mean, at this level, I'm sure you're dealing with a lot of stuff, issues. And let's talk about Boulan though. I wanted to talk to you about that location. You talk about a flagship location. I mean, that really is the defining flagship location of Water Street. I think I actually think when people think of that phase one development, they sort of think of Boulan. It's right there on the corner. It's the first thing you see as you drive in. You just said that a part of your sort of philosophy or strategy with Next Level Brands, like you wouldn't want to be any other location. Like that is Next Level Brands. It's these like defining places of particular locations. Like not only we want to be downtown. No. We want the best intersection in downtown.
I'd rather pay up and get the best spot than get a little bit of a discount to be 2 blocks off of it. I've learned that, many, many times. And as real estate markets get hotter, people make sacrifices. They used to have the A location and now, well, it's cheaper. I'll go over here. I'll go over there. But I mean, Water Street, I agree with you. It might be the best restaurant location on the West Coast of Florida. It is an absolutely beautiful restaurant. I think that we, nailed the concept.
The bar's so ridiculous.
Well, the red sign. I mean, that red
Right.
sign is just so urban, and it really, modernized, urbanized Tampa. Not that Water Street didn't, but
Yes.
it really creates like the energy and the
A
brand for it.
metropolitan feel, right? We feel like we're in a real city walking down that street and looking at this restaurant.
It's an amazing place. It's way too happening for me.
So when Jeff was on the show, he said that you guys actually have a couple different concepts. It's just a matter of finding the space, the right location. And you did say that, hey, we're sort of working on some stuff and maybe you're getting closer to an announcement. Can you share any sort of details on that? I mean, what type of food at least or where they could be?
Yeah. So Jeff and Joe primarily, they have all sorts of ideas and concepts, but restaurants are all businesses, but restaurants particularly, you want to put the right concept in the right place. So there's not, if you wanted to put a McDonald's in Water, at where the Boulan space is, that doesn't quite fit, right? And if we want to put Boulan at Westshore Mall, it's not the right fit either, right? So you want to make sure you're marrying the concepts with the demand. And they have a bunch of, they have a Mexican concept, they have a steakhouse concept, they have an Asian concept, they have a diner concept. They got all sorts of things that they want to do. And, we're out scouring, going back to like what I do for a living. We have a whole tenant rep practice and we're looking at a lot of spaces in a lot of places. And it's hard when you're not going to compromise on your criteria. It makes it a lot more difficult, to find them. But, we're very close on a deal in Sarasota, in a great spot. And, very close on that. And we're also very close to another deal in downtown Tampa. So
Ooh.
in terms of what the concepts will be, that hasn't been finalized. We do love Forbici. I mean, it's beloved by the community. It is really just an amazing concept. It's approachable. I can go there for a business meeting. I can go there on a date with my wife. I can take my kids there. Everyone loves takeout. They have the pizza, pasta, but you can also get a great steak or a great fish. It's a very diverse concept that's proven. It's one of the most successful restaurants in the Tampa Bay area, and we think we really got a good formula for it. So that's one that we're going to, try out in a couple of different spots. So we're actively looking for it. But going back, if it's not, if it's could be something else very easily. If these high ceilings or a brand new build, maybe that's not the right spot for it. So we're still working out which one's going to go there, but I would expect, within the next 2 months, announcements on probably 2 locations. And then beyond that, I mean, we want to open up 20. We want to have 20 restaurants within 5 years. It's a lofty goal. I don't know that we'll get there, but you got to kind of set out a vision to be able to start to execute that, because what is it going to take to do that? You don't just wake up and open that. You got to build the right real estate teams. You got to get the right design elements of it. You got to build the financial structures. You got to figure out who's going to operate them. Everything's got to be planned to be able to accomplish that. And so whether we do or we don't, when you put a goal like that in, that allows you to prepare for it. And that's what we're actively focused on. So,
is the greatest challenge with Next Level that placemaking? I mean, it sounds like you have more, or at least the food team, like Jeff and those guys maybe have more concepts than spaces. You mentioned like an Asian place, all these sort of things, but where do you place them?
I mean, there's so many challenges in the restaurant business. I think, as Jeff said, it's like a business with like holes in the floor all over the place that money falls through.
I don't get it. I look at a place like Boulan. I imagine how much it costs to build that out. I think about, how do you make your money back, even if you're selling $20 martinis? Maybe they're 18, maybe they're 25. I don't know. Expensive stuff. Even then, how do you get those numbers to work? And then you think about the human power, right? People maybe not showing up for a shift, and then you need to figure this out, and the management and the emotions, and it notoriously is a very difficult business.
It's why I was not really interested to begin with. That's why I didn't get involved with it from the beginning. But there is, call it 80% of them fail. Maybe there's another 10% of them where people they're not doing hugely successful, but they have a job for themselves.
Right.
And then, there's kind of this top tier that are massively successful. And it just evolves and changes based off of the whims. I mean, that's why it's such a hard business, because even if you're really, really popular today, you're probably not going to be popular in 20 years. Things need to evolve and freshen, and there's no simple answer to it, because you got to get it all right.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we make a really powerful team between the three of us. With the business background, the finance background, the real estate background, the build out elements of it, the operating expertise. We're all cultural people. So that's one thing that we align very, very deeply on. Both Jeff, Joe, the three of us, we want to build a place for people. I mean, we do things for our employees that no other restaurant group does in terms of, paid days off and team building events. We just had an amazing, our holiday event was I think it was like in February, because, we're not taking holidays, which is our busiest time,
right,
and closing down the restaurants. But, who closes a restaurant? All three of those restaurants, I mean, we probably lost a couple $100,000 in sales, or 100,000 at least in sales that day, to be able to throw a party, for all of our people. But that's how you build culture. You bring them together. You're not talking about work. You're getting to know each other on a more intimate level. You do recognition. You give them awards. You give them some technical awards. Who's the top, selling, server in the network, and you do some fun awards about, who's always late for coffee.
I think the guests can feel that. I know I can feel that when I walk into an establishment and people are dialed in and they know the menu and they're happy and they're excited to see you, and you sit down and it's a good experience. I think that filters through to the experience of someone sitting and enjoying a meal.
100% agree. And when you talk about, people talk, when we want to change the culinary landscape of Tampa, people think of that in the food side of it. Oh, we're going to, evolve. We actually think of it more on the people side of it, where, restaurants are kind of also notoriously very difficult. You were bringing up some of the staffing issues, the social issues. There's always alcohol involved. So there's all sorts of,
all the above,
it's like a soap opera, kind of watching what goes on there. But, when you really, going back to culture and purpose and people, when you're able to bring people together, Jeff has a line, no one finds hospitality, hospitality finds you. Everyone gets into it because I'm going to be doing it while I'm in college or while I'm in transition, and I'm not going to be doing it for a long time. Then you can realize you can make a lot of money in it. And then you realize that there's a lot of opportunity. through all that space. And then the next thing you know, it's your profession. And so for us to professionalize hospitality here, to be able to provide all these professionals, in that space, a place where, it's not a publicly traded company where you're employee number 500,000, what have you done for me lately, but you can truly be on the ground floor, and we do things differently, from how we treat people to how we interact, to how we train. We try to tell people, you don't work for Boulan, you don't work for Union, you work for next level brands. And to be able to kind of cross-pollinate that, to be able to bring that camaraderie where the chef at the other restaurant isn't a threat and your competitor, it's your partner to be able to creatively, like, try this or try that, or what do you think about this? For managers to be able to share best practices, for our corporate infrastructure to be able to kind of set training up. So if you go here or you go there, it might be a little bit different menu item, but the process is the same. I mean, really professionalize it. We have some great icons in our area, Chris
Right.
Sullivan, Bob Basham, kind of top of the food chain for us, great mentors and friends of mine. But since then, I mean, great. And I'm not disparaging any of we have some great restaurateurs that have come, Richard Gonsmark.
Did those guys say,
Pont.
you're doing what? Just stick to real estate, man. This is a crazy business.
I've had so many people along the way say, what are you doing? You're 26-year-old kid, you're going to start an insurance company? What do you know about insurance?
That's true. You've been told what the hell are you doing before.
My entire life has been that, honestly.
Wow.
But on this one, it's been tremendously fulfilling. And I do think we are making, I think the people that work, and I'm not the person to ask, but I do think
Sure.
that the people that work at Next Level Brands really feel a connection to the organization that they don't necessarily feel maybe in some of their past work experiences. And that's why that's why I say it's been fun and it's exciting.
So I love that you brought up the professionalism to that industry. I almost think of, like, if you go to something like Burns and the waiter's been there for 30 or 40 years, and the reverence he has for that business and the stories he has to share. I mean, there's restaurants like that in many places around the world where these men and women work there for their career, and there's so much more than just a waiter or a server. Like, that's not how they're defined. They're like a professional to that organization. And so in that same thought process, that's what you want to bring to the entire industry as a whole, but specifically your organization, is like, you want people to be there as a career and have that ingrained in their soul. I love
Absolutely. And then find their opportunity going forward. I mean, who knows where these people are going to do? They work here, they find that professionalism, they get a passion for it, hospitality finds them, and then maybe they go up and up their own restaurant, or maybe they do a partnership with us at some point in the future.
Or one of, someone who's cleaning off the tables might be an executive one day, in your organization.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, and bringing up Burns, I mean, that's exactly right. Like, what Burns has done, what the Laxer family has done now, in multiple generations is nothing short of amazing. You don't pull up to Burns. I mean, I know the first time I pulled up to Burns, I'm like, where am I? Even you walk in, you're like, this is unlike any place that I've ever been. But that is to me like the epitome of professionalism, in terms of every detail has kind of been thought through, and the way that they, and it's evolved. I mean, it has to modernize, it had to modernize because of the time, but that is a great example here in Tampa. And think about what Burns has meant to Tampa, in terms of its notoriety.
Yeah.
And so if we can build next level brands to have that same professional culture, like transforming the landscape of Tampa isn't about like going and getting a great steak or having some great meatballs. It's about the culture of the people. It's about the professionalism of the people. I mean, and think about what, like what you said, all these young people that start or wherever they are in their career, all of a sudden they can be an executive, like right here in Tampa. That's exciting. And that's really our goal. We're not going to be opening up restaurants all over the country. We don't have the energy or time for that. But, I can see us opening 20 restaurants here in our area and really building something that allows people to find their careers. That's transforming the landscape.
Seems like there's a market for it, because anytime I go to any of the popular restaurants in Tampa, there's like a wait list, a line out the door. My birthday's this weekend. My wife is scrambling to try to find a spot. I'm like, babe, just don't worry about it. We're just something casual. We can't find a reservation anywhere. It's insane.
Well, you can text me. I'm like a walking open table. People are always like, hey, can I get in?
I'm sure that now that you're involved, people are like, hey, buddy, by the way.
I'm happy to.
Well, listen, thank you for doing the show today. This was
Appreciate
awesome.
having me. I'll tell you, it's going back to people doing great things locally. I think what you've done here, it's a couple years doing it, and the following you've got, you've gained, and the people coming on, and the information you're bringing to people. I mean, it takes people doing things, taking risks, putting themselves out there. It was my pleasure to come on. I was happy to do it, and glad you asked me. And I'm rooting you on. Keep going.
Well, I really appreciate that, and anyone listening that wants to start their own podcast, I think I try to go on anyone else's podcast. Anytime anyone starts something fun that promotes our region and our city in a good way, I always share it on my page to all my I just want a better community, a better region, and a better city.
It's
And
clear.
so, well, I appreciate
So,
that.
before we end, let me ask you a
Sure.
question. Like, when did you realize this was going to be like a real thing?
Gosh, I don't know. I think it all sort of happened kind of quick. David and I have been working together since the very beginning. He was behind the scenes forever, and then he just moved to Tampa in December and went full time. I still have, like I described, my real estate thing on the side. I just like talking to people, and I always wanted to do some sort of like a show. I didn't know what that meant, like a radio show or I don't know, something when I was younger. And I started this as a kind of a marketing platform for my real estate business. A lot of realtors would do those videos you probably see on
Hmm.
online where they're giving information. And I was like, I want to do something deeper. Well, let's start a podcast. And I had on some friends in real estate and a lender, an insurance guy, and my cousin was opening an art shop and a little retail property he bought on Central Avenue in St. Pete. And then I had on Joe Fall, who's a general
I know,
contractor
Joe.
and great guy. And then from, he's ambitious and excitable. I got coffee with him and he fired me up and I just kept it going, until I started talking to some people in the government and the mayor and now I'm talking to you. So it's just been something that has progressed. And because I love it so much, although it doesn't pay my bills or anything, I think number one, I love it. I think you sort of have to have a love for something to continue to do it. We do this weekly. We even have increased our show to twice a week, and so I love it. And because of that, I'm super committed to it. And also, the community has been really receptive to it, and people come up to me all the time and tell me how much they love it. And I get emails and texts and phone calls and DMs online, and people tell me how much they appreciate it. And so that really keeps me going too. And as long as I'm having fun and as long as people love it, I'll keep doing it.
But it'll just show you like do stuff.
Yeah,
You just do stuff. You don't know how it's going to turn out,
it's so true.
and then all of a sudden, like you'll surprise yourself.
Well, I'm at the beginning of a. I don't feel like it's a ledge. I have a lot of faith in it, but I told you I'm doing my first little development project. So this man John Hernandez, old school West Tampa guy, built this laundry facility, this laundry plant in Riverside Heights in '03, and has built it up for 20 years, and he's retiring. And I bought the building early this year just because I have a vision for it. So 18-foot ceilings, 3,000 square feet, commercial general, big
See,
parking
this gets
lot.
me excited right here.
That's what I'm saying. It's right up the road from Armature Works. It's on Boulevard. Riverside Heights is what I believe it truthfully will sort of replace the market for younger people. I say younger people, but people sort of starting out families, young professionals, people who have a decent level of income who can't afford 2.5 million in South Tampa. They're going to Tampa Heights. They're going to Riverside Heights. They're going to what's the other neighborhood there on the water? Ridgewood Park, I think it's called. So you're starting to see home sales in here, 1.2 million, 1.5 million for new construction up the road. You can put the little man down, David. I think you know where the property's at. Um, don't have a tenant in mind. I initially broke it down to, well, let me maybe do a retail play. I could split the building up and do 2 tenants or 3 tenants. 3 tenants doesn't work. It's a little bit too expensive to get some return on the back end. I'm starting to understand that. I think the highest and best use here with all the numbers is a single tenant. So we're breaking that down. Where my sort of leap of faith comes into play is I've always been really passionate about my own concept, and not everyone, from here where this is, you're going across the bridge to West Tampa or you're headed south to Armature Works. All the people from Seminole Heights kind of cross this area. On this side where we are, where this map is looking, which is the east side of Boulevard, is Tampa Heights, west side's Riverside Heights, and north of MLK is Seminole Heights. So it's in this like pocket area, which I feel is really, really good for a concept. And so I've been toying around with the idea of doing my own thing. Cafe, bakery, afternoon spritzes, light bites. Wouldn't call it a restaurant, you know, you maybe close at 8 o'clock at night, light music, cocktails, you go here before dinner type thing. Um, I just love the building. And so where I'm at now is and I'm talking to a few people, some tenants that are interested. So it's like, do I sort of continue down that road or do I really jump off and do my own thing? And I don't know if there's any conversation I needed to have. It's the one with you today because you probably told me to go for it.
Well, you got to do stuff.
Yeah.
You know, you got to have a vision. You got to take chances, and you know, if it works out, great. But you know what? If you'll just adapt and you'll figure it out. But like doing the podcast, doing that, anything I've done in my life, like I encourage anyone listening, like just do it.
Yeah, hell yeah.
You know,
I
just
love
figure
that.
it out.
I love the attitude. I think that attitude is so important to drive you forward in life. You know, you just got to try things. You just
Well,
gotta do
otherwise
it.
you have regret.
Mm.
Yeah, I think that's the other side of that. You always kind of wonder what would have been if you would have done that, and then you'll drive by someone else who bought that property that you were eyeing and did something, and you know, you're like, oh man.
Well, and then all the people I talk to that are more analytical, and you probably, I know you're an analytical person from what we've talked about today, but you probably saw it when you said Marcus and Millichap, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, these guys are like, well, what's the price per square foot, and what's the square footage of this, and what are your rent comps, and what are your this and what are your that? I'm like, look, frankly, that was sort of last on the list for me. I know this city. I know this location. This is commercial general. It's a third of an acre. It's positioned with a good parking lot. It's built in '03. It's block construction. Like I had enough check marks where I was like, fuck it.
You'll figure it out.
I'm going to
You'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like jumping in and figuring things out and being adaptive and being resilient. That's way better than having everything planned out from day one. Because the only guarantee is it's not going to work out as you plan it. That's the only guarantee in the entire situation.
So you're wasting your time anyway.
Well, just jump in. You know, I mean, that's been my entire life almost with everything I've ever done is like you just jump in, you give your best, and you adapt and change as things figure it out. But like to not do things because you're waiting to be ready or you're waiting for whatever it is, it's like life passes you by and then what? So
and then what? Yeah.
I love that you're doing this. I love that. You know, I think that's exciting. And I'm sure, you know, at some point in the future, we'll look back and we can have a follow-up meeting where I interview you and we tour your spot.
I'm going to hold you to that. I love that idea.
Deal.
Andrew Wright, thank you.
Thanks for having me on.
All right. Bye, everybody. Thank you.